All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Little bit of hiccups as usual on my end. The GPU graphics card of mine like crapped out last week because of NVIDIA updates. And then of course there was OBS updates and it bungled some stuff. Video wasn't coming through properly, this, that, and the other. So, fun stuff there. But it looks like things are all good now. And if they're not good, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But seems like everything's squared away. I am going to do my normal that I always forget to do, and that is go over to my good old blue sky. Oh, hearing myself talk now because I have to go to my link. And I will actually post because I'm trying to remember to do that. Cool. Okay, 1 second. I need to look up. There's got to be a cool way that just like auto posts stuff like this. Boom. Okay, well, we're here. We did it. And the camera is working. Cool. Look at that. It was not working earlier along with some other stuff, but it looks like the mic is working too. So I think we are in business. Love random computer updates that mess with everything. They are my favorite. Psych. They really friggin' suck. Anyway, so now I can close up blue sky. So that's good. And I wonder if I can close out. I can close out the Epic Launcher. I had the Epic Launcher up because it was had a massive update itself. Again, updates on updates on updates on updates apparently lately is the name of the game. But no thank you. No more, please. Please, please, please. Okay. Holy goodness gracious. So, as usual, I've got my ArtStation stuff pulled up, but I also normally lately I've been drawing my other stuff, right? Like I've been drawing my like I had Squirrel Girl and some other stuff to draw. I'm going a different route again because I liked when I did studies, right? When I was on stream and I did some studies. I think those were efficient and I liked them. And the other day, so I had planned on originally doing figure drawing. So I've got like a different figure drawing app and thousands of different pictures over the years. And my goal was, I'll just do some figure drawing on stream this week. I will eventually do figure drawing normally, I think, like in the mornings. But I came across someone's art that I really, really, really wanted to study. And I'll go over that in a little bit. But for now, let's look at some cool stuff. And that first cool stuff stuff is I saw it was from Nico Dorico. As we've talked about this game multiple times, I saw that it had the logo for the game, and I love the design of this game. I've talked about it multiple times on stream. And so I was hoping this might be a new studio or something, or a new person. And it looks like stuff I've not seen before. I hadn't liked it yet. Again, their super chunky, playful style is definitely something I absolutely love. Like, stuff like this looks so fun. And I think that now in talking, I think maybe this is what I study. So this week, I think, okay, this week is school week, okay? It is study, studious cool guy week. So I think, so I'll look over some character stuff today, right? But I think what might actually, so we've talked about before, if you are trying to fix point C, maybe look back at point A, right? And that's not quite the exact same sentiment here, but the idea is that like I've been doing my figure drawing or like, character work, and I feel like my weakest point is my coloring, right? My values, my colors. And I immediately go to let me just paint more people, which is true and accurate, but I wonder if I do some like prop and environment stuff instead. And I don't even focus on character. I just do some fun prop things. So I wonder if maybe Tuesday or well, goodness, today's Tuesday. Maybe Wednesday, if I have time, I'll do like a couple fun prop drawings, and then we can just paint them and do stuff like that. I think, yeah, I think that's the plan. Not today, because I already had a plan in place, so I don't feel like changing it now. But do I follow this studio? This cat looks familiar. Oh yeah, we did like this, but the rest of their work was, because I remember this goofy cat, but the rest of their work was not like my most favorite, I do recall now. That said, it looks like I see another piece from Nico Dorico, and I will gladly look at this though. Just some crazy pipes. Look at them pipes. The green really obviously pops very well. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about these. They're very clean though. Like they're very playful clean. I like it. Anyway, moving on then. I didn't know when I saw this is this was 2D or 3D. A speed sculpt. Okay, so that means 3D. Of Gwenum. I have this an action figure of her downstairs on my massive Spider-Man shelf. Clean, quick sculpt though. I like this. It looks fun. It's got obviously working with the character like Silk. It's nice because their body, or any Spider-Man and stuff like that, like their body's completely encased, right? Like they're not like, they don't even have skin exposed, nothing. She's just pretty much one big old suit with a weird, crazy hood and a tongue coming out, and that's what we got. And it is so when I think of Silk, I think of her like two things. I think of like the crazy tongue, and then her like she's got claw-like fingers. And I think this one does a good job of doing just a quick pop of those things, and the nice textural difference. You see how they just, obviously a speed sculpt, they're not like full texturing, but they have like a really matte like body suit, and then this glistening, very high gloss tongue. Gross, but cool. Guillaume de Corde. Oh yeah, I remember this person. Because they sculpt, yeah, that's gorgeous. That this is 3D. How, come on. Yeah, this is wild watching their stuff, because like their stuff genuinely looks two-dimensional. And I say that in like the greatest way possible, that like somehow their 3D work has this animated hand-drawn quality, the way that they are able to. So like this is that, but like the way that they render even is just very cool. Yeah, very impressive. I still can't get over this one. This legitimately looks like Zeniba, like straight from Miyazaki's mind to pen. Very, very cool. Do they say anything much about what they do? Nope. Not a man of many, not of many words. Already following, so don't need to add it. I don't know what this is. This is Fedorov. Illustration that I drew for the board game Inside Out. I just saw this weird, like, squid thing. I don't even know what's happening. But it made me laugh. And like I saw this guy now, and it reminds me of Bug's Life with how they had like the P.T. Barnum kind of energy, right? But it was Flea. Sorry, so random. My mom was flying out today. And she had issues with her plane. Like to the point where the pilot like apparently was like super wobbly, super weird, and then they landed back because apparently the pilot was like, "F this noise. I don't trust this. Something seems off." And so, which is cool that he, the recognition in that, but also kind of scary. And but yeah, so she's now on a new plane, brand new plane, same seat and stuff because they have assigned seat. So apparently, I don't remember where she's flying through. But yeah, so I'm just keeping up with that because that was kind of a scary thing to be, your mom's going flying, and obviously, like, usually flights have been perfectly fine for a billion years, but then the fact that there's been multiple issues lately due to, some people that rhyme with rump, it's just, yeah, it's weird, the idea of having to land back. It's kind of scary. But so don't mind me if I'm peeking at my phone for the next couple little bits, just because, obviously family safety. But anyway, no, this one reminded me of from P.T. Barnum, the flick, the Flea. What was his name? His full name? Bugs Life Flea. P.T. Flea. Okay, so I thought it was just letters. So P.T. Barnum, P.T. Flea. That makes sense. Ratzenberger. Okay. But yeah, this looked cute and weird and kind of scary. So naturally I wanted to click on it. That's got to be cool. Like when you work on something like that and it gets made into like these giant cutouts at like a big convention and stuff. That's got to feel neat. What else has this person made? Death in the Toilet is the name of one of their fan projects, or like personal projects. I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued. You give me a good toilet joke, I've got low standards. All right, man. I'm not gonna lie and act like I'm cooler than that. You give me a toilet joke, I like it. Definitely an interesting style. Like this is the Naruto stuff, the different Kages. Again, I like it's done well. I think it's just one of those things where how sometimes styles just don't vibe with you personally. But I've got like no complaints about it itself. But here we go. Death in the Toilet, a personal project that I did recently for practice. I think many people were scared of toilets because sometimes you can find something funny or creepy there. In my project, this is a charming and frightening Venera. So I don't know about you guys. I don't know if I've ever like approached a toilet with mixed emotions of fear and laughter. I mean, it might just be me. Maybe you guys really have some sort of, I don't know, both fear and laughter are not things I associate with toilets. But who am I? A humble 30-something male who, poops. Oh my God. So the poop, what? I'm gonna read all of this because I don't know. I don't get this. Petrovic is the chief cleaner at the metallurgical enterprise. He is no longer young but experienced. Vitya came under his leadership, with whom they immediately had a dislike. But soon everything will change. Obviously, English is not this person's first language, which is perfectly fine. We get the idea. It's an old meme at this point. And it was someone who posted something on like some sort of Imager or Reddit or some sort of thread of sorts, right? And the person posted it, and the English was a little unclear, right? A little broken to an extent. And someone's first reply to that was like super shitty, and there was the first reply someone commented was like, me no English good, like something like super shitty, like really rude. And the person replied, and it's forever ingrained in my head, and I love it so much. It was, oh, I don't want to butcher the exact wording, but it was basically that, like, was it, you speak English because it's the only language you know. I speak English because it's the only language you know. We are not the same. Like, you only speak one language, you idiot, and you think you know so much because you know this one language, whereas you're so ignorant and not a worldly individual and don't understand other people's languages. But then there's other people who have multiple languages and multiple ways of communicating, and they have to learn English because you refuse to learn other languages. And by you, I also still mean our education system and how our country is portrayed. We should learn a lot of languages. I think that shouldn't be like a generic, oh, 2 years in high school. No, like, that should be normal. But anyway, yeah, I know English because it's the only language you know. You know English because it's the, or you whatever, you get the idea. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Then here's Vitya. Is a guy who recently got a job as a cleaner at a factory. In life, he's lazy and irritable, so he didn't immediately have a relationship with the other cleaner. That's cute, though. So you can see that, like, little expression sheets. Dead is a grandfather who had fallen victim to a monster that lives under the toilet. Fear and laughter. That is kind of adorable. The idea that it's all toilet stuff, and he's got, like, he's missing a slipper, but he's got toilet paper stuck to his foot then. That's pretty rad. That's dumb. Venera is a beautiful lady who lives in the basement under the building. It was formed from everything that got into this basement. That's an interesting way of putting it. I don't know if they meant beautiful lady. Anyway, the monster, a poop monster, basically. Made of, like, looks like a lot of bug parts. Like, you can see, like, the cockroaches. These look like little roach legs. Genuinely looks like a giant pile of poop. And the toilet is the place where a terrible thing happened. Thanks for thank you for letting us go on that ride together, Fedorov. Definitely an interesting one. I would say it was cute. We look. Oh, then they had this fan art. This looked kind of cool. Resident Evil 4. I'm a sucker for some RE4. Played that game a billion times. Even if you didn't want to play that game a billion times, Capcom shoved it down your throat a billion times anyway. So, all right. I really just want a piece of chocolate. My head hurts. I did not sleep great, and so, like, I woke up with a headache. It was weird because I had, like, before you go to bed, you have, like, a weird moment of thought, right? And I had a weird moment of thought about my mom flying. And keep in mind, our family flies all the time. Like, it's not, like, weird, or not, like, super common. But I had, like, a weird thought about it. And I was like, that's weird. I never have these. Whatever. Go to bed. And then I woke up to a text of my mom saying we went back on the ground because there was an issue with the plane. It was weird. So, like, I feel like I probably didn't sleep well, which is why I woke up with, like, a pounding headache and then reading that text. So it was interesting. It was a weird morning. So this is a Marvel Snap Bruce Banner. Follow this artist already because they do amazing stuff, including Marvel Snap things, I think, too. Yeah, not much to say about this. I love this. This look. I like how, excuse me, the rim light really makes him pop. But it's an interesting rim light because as someone, like, for me, I do a lot of, like, more, like, how would you describe it? More contoury, right? Where these are really angular shapes. And I like that. I always like when Hulk renditions have some sort of like glowy nature to him. Like this, like he's overflowing with this radiation energy, right? Because yes, obviously the original Hulk is just a big old green boy. But there's something really cool as like his design has progressed and stuff over the years, where like they lean into the radiation, the gamma energy aspect of it, and like when he just is like pure energy and like this glowing, like not necessarily fluid, but you know, like almost like a thing emitting from him. And so I like where he ended up. This is a cool idea though, like mid transformation. Okay, so this is the last one because the last tab is actually the artist I wanted to look at. So this says fan art for a game I stumbled on by accident. It's a neat free game by a lone dev. Game was fire, was hooked for weeks. Okay, I'll take a look because I like this art. Yeah, the thumbnail had just like this little guitarist, and I was intrigued. I like this. We've talked about this before. The art style here, where it has like extra lines, right? They have like these just little lines to add this texture. I don't know what. There's got to be like a style name for that. I don't know, but it's the what could we call it? What could we call that style? It is the it usually is on bones. Like I feel like everything it gets started from like skeletons. I feel like it was like indie games that started doing that a lot with like rock texture in a way, and it just kind of pervaded into everything else. I don't know. We'll workshop it. If somebody has a cool name to refer to this art style, this not saying like this is like a singular style, but like the style in which you have these lines that don't necessarily contour always or do anything in particular, but they add like this extra flair, right? Like the lines on the leg, the lines on the bones, these little lines all over the sword. We've got to have a name for it. We'll come up with one. But yeah, auto necro chess. So one of my it looks like Plants vs Zombies, honestly. But it's chess. The art style is super cute, like little guys like this. What is the game? A mixture of auto battler and strategy. A project that I started from for last year's Halloween. Huh. This is kind of interesting. We'll look at. Can we just click run? Does it just play right here? We can take a peek at what this person does. It says necro chess, so I assumed chess, which one of my good buddies is a like literally we'll play Monday and Wednesday nights, right? Games with everybody, like our group of friends. Oh god. Where's that audio going to? Where does my browser audio go? Okay, it's not too loud for you guys. I'm gonna crank it down a little bit though, because it's really loud. Rent's due in a week with no money, no job, and lots of stress. You give up. The system's broken, but maybe it's time someone does something about it. This is really loud on my end. If you guys like hear it butt blasting, I apologize. There we go. Here, why don't we wait? Something like that, sure. I just want to see the game in motion. That's literally all I wanted to see. I don't know what this is. What's happening? Now use coins to buy stuff. Click somewhere, then click where you want to place it. You don't want to buy anything. I'm very confused. I should have, on stream, I didn't read directions. So that probably is not helping. Okay, so it's like an auto battler. Plans for Zombies lane system. Cute. I didn't know. I was curious to see if they actually had animated. Really, that's what I was coming to see. Is if they did full animation to stuff, or if they did like more of squishy, squash, and stretch stuff, which is, it appears that's what they did. Cute though. Anyway, back to Julian Wong's stuff. That piece was dope. So I'm curious to see what else they've done. Sausage Man, the hit title Sausage. Really? What? Finally got time to compile a bunch of fun sketches I did for Sausage Man. Oh, they literally are like sausages. They're just big old sausages, like their base bodies. What the F? There are so many of these. What did this person... Wait, what the? Good old Sausage Man. Weird. I want to find the game. Do they have a link to the game? I don't want to search Sausage Man. I'm sorry. It's not... I don't feel like doing that right now. Especially not on stream. Hey, yo, Google, show me that Sausage Man. They're cute, though. They almost remind me of the chicken nuggets from McDonald's or whatever for Halloween, because they're just like a nugget shape, kind of with like a piece on top and a piece underneath. Very, very similar energy to me, at least. Freaking Sausage Man. My goodness. This is fun. A bunch of different Pokemon snakes. And their trainers that are like fully kitted out matching. I like it. I like this. This weird like neck pillow whatever thing. I can't remember that snake's name from a slightly newer gen. That's not a snake. Technically, I don't think it was considered a snake, where these guys are. I'll allow it, though. I'll allow it. I'm genuinely intrigued by the Sausage Man. And everything's in a different language when I look at Sausage Man details. So weird. Like, I'm so intrigued because the concepts are everything. Like, there was Egyptian, there was Western, there's like Asian-y, cartoony playfulness, there's candy, there's vampires, there's this kind of looks like the demon stuff. Like, what am I looking at? Oh, Sausage Man. There's Thor. There's a Sausage Man Thor and Loki and Odin. What? That actually looks really cool, though. This simple animation here, I like this. Just the painted on. It looks like it was a 3D piece then, yeah, but they just painted the textures on each frame. So weird. So weird, but I love it. I love you, Sausage Man. Give me... I love the meat. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Anyway. Enough about looking at sausages on the internet. So, this is the main thing I wanted to look at today. Okay? So, as you guys know, when I've been drawing, my sketches have been... I feel like I'm not too upset about how my sketches have been turning out. Like, the line work is a little weird and all that, but like I feel like my overall vibes, I've been okay with my art style, I guess, of drawing, but not of my painting. if we go through later and I can go through and cruise through some stuff, my painting is all over the place, right? Like I don't have any cohesive style. I change every piece I do, I paint it differently. Every single piece. Which is not inherently a bad thing, but it's a bad thing because I don't want to do that. As simple as that, right? Like I want to have a more cohesive way of leaving a mark and painting my pieces where like maybe I have a more cohesive painting style and then my character designs might change a little bit or, but I really need to get better. Okay. Which I say get better, but give me just a moment. I was just making sure everything's good with my mama. Okay. Sorry, I know it's not fun being distracted while on stream, but it's, everybody understands that, the idea of family with this. But anywho, as I wait to see her, because she said she'd be taken off so they got on a brand new plane, right? And she said it should be at 11 that they're going to go to take off. And I just hadn't gotten a text in a bit. So I'm just kind of checking in with her before I like start drawing this, because I feel like once I start drawing, it's harder. I can't. I get more distracted, or I get less distracted when I'm actually drawing. But anyway, so I stumbled on this. Their name is Fengli. We'll click on the Twitter link just for a second. I don't use Twitter. I refuse to use Twitter right now. And it looks like they haven't really used it much either. So I respect that. Like lately, they've kind of stopped. Cool. So we can just get out of the Twitter. We don't need to see this shit. Anyway, they are from China, from Chengdu, China. Fengli Li. They do some cool stuff, simply put, right? So if we scroll all the way down from their earlier stuff from 9 years ago, right? 9 years ago is a good chunk of time. Okay. Sorry. They were finally taking off, so I had to just make sure I was texting back. She had joked because apparently after 3 hours, the policy of delays with 3 hours is when they can provide vouchers. My mother is the person who will get deals and not complain, but like make sure she gets what she wants, right? And it was 2 hours and 58 minutes. And they were like, no, I'm sorry, it hasn't quite hit 3 hours yet. And then they were on the plane, so they weren't allowed. That sucks. Of a delay. Yeah, that sucks. 3 hours basically delayed. Anybody who flies, right, knows how much that sucks. Like when you fly a lot too, like it's bound to happen. Like I said, our family flies a good amount. I haven't flown. I used to fly multiple times a year, but since COVID, that's been kind of, that number's down. Flown a handful of times, obviously, since COVID, but not as many. Like, I feel like there was probably 1 year that I flew more in a single year than I did since COVID now, to put in perspective, like how often we were flying at points. But anyway, yeah, plane delays suck. Because like you can't go anywhere. What the are you gonna do? Oh great, I guess I just sit here for multiple hours and I'm just borked. And I bring, okay, I bring my iPad and I bring my Nintendo Switch. And I never use either of them. I don't know what is wrong with me. It's like an emotional support technology that I never, I'm not going to use it, but I got to know I have it. But I'm not going to turn them on when I'm waiting in the plane. I'm not going to turn them on when I'm waiting during the delay of a plane. I have a problem. I don't know if I'm the only one, but it's my emotional support. Like, people have, like, you know, they're like dogs or they're animals, right? And I'd be like, oh no, sir, this is my emotional support switch. Like, not even joking. Like, it just needs to be with me. I'm probably not going to play it. And by probably, I mean, oh no, I'm not going to. And then at every hotel room, I like plug it back in to be like, oh, gotta make sure it's plugged back in and it's charging. Just so it can sit here and not be used. And then I'll like put it next to the bed sometimes. I'll put the iPad next to the bed, and it's like, why are we playing this game, Britton? You're not doing it. Ugh. Ooh, don't mind me. I'm getting a little warm. So what I was getting at is Fengli Lee's stuff here. So this is from 9 years ago, right? This is a good chunk of time. Very, very long ago. Many, many moons ago. Long before COVID, as I was just talking about my plane trips and stuff with COVID, or post-COVID. So you can see their style and their way of painting has changed quite a bit as we scroll up more. Was it great, though, from the start 8 years ago? Yeah, this looks pretty freaking good, right? These are clean. I really like these. Work for The Last War. I don't know what game that is at this point. Could be a board game, could be a card game. Certain things you can see they definitely have gotten better with. Like, this hand looks absolutely terrible. Like, this hand is bigger than this hand, and that doesn't even make sense. And why has he got such a baby little hand? Perspective, this would be much larger. And their use of shape has gotten better too. Like, this bicep to shoulder, like, I get what they're trying to accomplish. Visually is not reading. But if we're looking from like a painterly perspective, their way of making a mark is clean, and I like it. But we'll see how it's evolved, okay? This is a great piece. This looks great with Logan, and X-23 clearly came out. I'm guessing this is around when the movie came out, because this is... I don't even remember. That movie, was that 8 years ago? Was it 20 years ago? I don't understand time. Excuse me. My temperature is going to be so out of whack. I'll complain about that later, but... Anyway, so as we scroll up, we can see they like... That's kind of cool. This robotic mummy. That's a neat idea. Always a fan of King of Fighters, though, because you can see they do more King of Fighters as time goes on. And man, I respect that. I got massive King of Fighters poster behind me. I've got, obviously, my Tekken, my Street Fighter, my Soul Calibur is right. You can kind of see it, right? It's right there. Soul Calibur poster. Above that is my X-Men vs. Street Fighter. I have the cabinet here. Obviously, if you're here, you guys know I like my fighting games. And so the fact that they've got all this SNK stuff and Darkstalkers with Morgan and stuff, definitely a plus already. They've got some Metal Slug stuff here. But as you can see, their painting and their style is good. But it's very stroke heavy right now. As you can see, like, you can see a lot of the strokes, which isn't a bad thing. I'm just noting something for as we scroll up. Looks like they... Oh, they just reposted it for some reason, a lot of these things. Yeah, they just reposted everything twice. Kind of weird. What is... I don't actually know why. Maybe the website borked. Okay, the website borked. I was like, that's not what they did. They had other stuff. Okay. Now that we're away from the website being broken, what I'm getting at is you... Oh, Marvel... Oh, gosh. I'm terrible. I'm trying to just talk about stuff, and then I get a Marvel Snap notification up in here. I got the notification, but it's not there. ArtStation kind of sucks as a social platform. Like, I feel like the way that they do things is rough. And apparently now we're just sitting here as the thing loads. Yeah, lame. I got the notification. Maybe when I'm done yapping, we'll be able to see that new post. Because it is not coming up right now. View all notifications. It was from 13 minutes ago. Oh, Etienne. Always talk about their stuff. Absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. But stuff like this, right? Like painting environments might help me. Oh, they started straight up in a full 3D model and then just painted everything. Anyway, so what they did then is they've definitely leaned into their more playful, chubby, chibi, chunky nature, right? Which I love this style. It's hard because my brain doesn't wrap my head around this type of style too much because it's like not rubber hosey per se, but it's very chunky and my brain is too anatomy focused. I would love to be able to break the shapes better, but right now I'm not very good at it. That said, what they are great at too, though, is their painting. So this was 7 years ago. Again, you can see like good painting techniques. Their strokes are a little more visible. But then as we go on, like here, what do we got here? Year later, looking good. And they just kind of refine and refine and refine. And then look at this Mai, just a few years ago. We see a handful of strokes. We see excellent use though. So if there's one thing I can say about this type of style and this look is I really like their skin, right? Their skin looks really good. And that's something I would love to get better at is painting skin and making it feel lifelike and making it look just so good like this. There's something about all their skin, especially their like, even the pale ones or this red, like this character's red and their skin looks dope. And so I wanted to break down what they do, right? I want to act like legit color pick. I want to look at everything they're doing for their choice of colors. I really want to break it down because when it comes to drawing, obviously I can look at stuff and draw their pieces, which is I like doing. I've done that before on stream, and it's a good way to analyze, to learn, and to go on about that. But for painting, I don't do painting studies. And I think that's important because just like anything, right? If you can't draw hands well, draw a million hands. If you can't draw feet, draw a million feet. If you can't draw faces, draw faces from 1,000 angles, all right? Like, you just need to do the thing. And I feel like my painting lately has been, I'm going to draw a lot and then slap some paint on top when I'm done. And then I wonder why it doesn't look the way I want it, or it's not, you know, it's because I'm not practicing it. So anything you do, you need to study, you need to practice. I play Marvel Rivals way too much, right? I study and practice that game. Like, I'll go into the practice range and I practice my aim. And you know what? My aim is a lot better than most people I play with because I actually practice it. And I also study it by watching top 500 players. And maybe they have audio, maybe it's not, maybe I'm just looking at the replays. But I'm learning and seeing how they react to situations and breaking down their decision making. Everything you do, if you want to get better at it, you need to practice. And you need to learn from someone who's doing it better more often than not, right? And so I don't know why my brain just hasn't done that with painting, right? I think it's because I'm not as comfortable with it. And so when you're not as comfortable with something, you usually shy away from it, which is stupid, right? But anyway, so I just want to look at these things for a couple minutes before I break it down. I did grab a few of them already, and I have them on the iPad. I did it with preparation this time, okay? I didn't take forever, and I'm going to do it live on stream. I actually did it, okay? Be proud of me. Show me love, please. I did things. But so I want to look at it more in depth on the iPad because I can zoom in. Granted, it's shitty quality. Like I can zoom in, I can look at stuff like that. But it's this stuff here. Like I didn't take Kyo. I took this one. I took this painting. This one looks cooler though, not gonna lie. I like their use of color on that one a lot more. But I really want to break down, like, you see how they just paint in these chunks and kind of blend it, kind of not? I need to learn to do that. I've been doing like my thick ass comic booky stuff. And I don't want, like, it's one of those things where it can look okay, but in here it's not what I want. Like, it can look good, but it's not what I want to draw. And I want to kind of reassess all of that, right? Change my decision making, change all of that stuff. So I will break down more specifically later, but they don't. So one thing I'm noticing with theirs, right? For the most part, they don't have. Okay, so here we have a couple, and I think I took a couple of these pictures. So the newer stuff definitely has it, but if we look at some of their older stuff, this lighting isn't decisive in a sense though, right? Like, not saying they don't know how to do the lighting, it's just that they choose to make it a relatively flat lighting on the skin. So it's straight on, right? There's not like a hard shadow on the face. There's not hard shadows anywhere. Like on the skin, like yes, there's some here, but I mean, like as the forms move around, there's cast shadows, but not much else, right? There's a strong cast shadows. Which is interesting because you're working in such a way that you're not thinking as much of pure light, but just shapes. Which is hard because that's not what I do. Like here's a good example too. Like, yes, her breasts have shadow to them, but if you look, these arms and legs are flat as F, right? For better or for worse, like there's a strong cast shadow, but there's nothing else to these with shadows really. Like, yeah, this leg's a little back, so it's a little bit. But you get what I'm saying, that it just feels like more shapes rather than body parts. And I don't personally myself like that, so I don't want to like take that idea necessarily, but the way in which they paint, right? Like, look at this. Can we zoom into this one? Look at the way that they outline the leg and they outline this inner shadow with this nice red. So it's stuff like this that I want to steal, right? I want to learn, like, what are the colors? Am I going too extreme? I think that's one of my problems is I'm trying to go too extreme with colors. And people like this are not like pushing it to that. Like it's extreme, but I think I'm doing too much. And the best way is to literally take their pictures and color pick and see what they do, how they make these decisions. Again, like, I cannot reiterate enough. Like, I don't like these big old feet and stuff. That's not my style. But the paint is absolutely perfect. And like, this is a cool twist. And so we've been looking at all these like really smooth things, right? And then they've got something like this. So it shows that they have like a really good painterly approach in multiple ways. This is an interesting looking picture just because her shoulder is like non-existent in this pose. Obviously, this person knows anatomy well, and they know they probably did this very much as a conscious choice to give her one, massive looking arms, and then to see the face. Because if the shoulder was the size of this shoulder to compare, you wouldn't even see her face. You would see maybe like her, you wouldn't see nose and mouth. You would just see her eye because it would realistically be like womp, especially being raised up that high, you know? But no, it's cool to see then their ways of painting don't change though, right? So where's that one with Eo and stuff? Where's more skin exposed though? Is there anywhere with like more muscle? That's too much definition. Blah, 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 blah. Where's the one I'm pick? Oh, this guy. Did I already? Okay. So like if we look at like these guys, right? This versus this. Obviously one is more painted on in more details and a lot more intense, like this Marisa here. But if you look at the way that they paint, it doesn't super change, right? This is just a little more simplified, their shapes, where this has a lot more highlight, right? It looks like this is softer, where these have a little bit more range of in-between values. So it's essentially this. This is like the start to this then. So I'd imagine knowing how you'd paint would be like they would block in this at first, and then they sculpt in more of these things and really smooth out and round these shapes. But so I want to get to this though, because I feel like I'm okay at knowing the details like this, but I like the way that they paint. Like, look at these strokes. These look really good. And look at the colors, right? Like this slight shadow to the arm reads really well. And I like the way that they do this like skin. Their outlines for their bodies are normally darker colors, but there was one I saw before that wasn't even the color. I want to say it was like somebody wearing blue. I need to find that one again. It was like somebody wearing blue, and you'd think then like, oh, they'd have, or is it here? Yeah, she's got blue pants, right? But they chose the same outline as the skin tone, it looks like. Whereas the hair loses the outline as time goes, as it progresses down the body. So it's like these design choices that are definitely interesting and something to think about. And then the way their use of internal lines versus external, right? Do we see they've got these long, like these hard external lines on the hand, and then not much for the internal, right? So it's like they're outlining it without necessarily outlining it. So it's stuff like this that I really want to get better with. But yeah, so there's so many, like honestly, like going through these, I would be fine studying every single one of these images, right? But I grabbed a handful already, so we can look at them in just a minute now. But I want to gawk for a moment on stream more as we look at these. Because even like I said, like this isn't traditional skin tone, right? It is like, that's not even like someone from like Africa type of black. This is like genuinely like desaturated bluish black, you know? And yet it still looks alive in a way, right? And so I think I need to get used to whatever range, right? I think that's something I look at this and I say the range of values is something I would like to adopt, because their range reads really well. And I feel like I might be either underdoing it or overdoing it. But if we can break down what they're doing, I think that might help mentally for me to see, like looking at the color wheel, seeing the color variation and how they make these choices and what they're picking. I think that'll go a long way for sure. So I have 1,000 of these open right now. I don't really need all of these open. I can maybe just shove them on the side, since we are going to be, you know, I always keep one image up on the screen anyway. I do have Spotify open already, so let's pop on just our normal chill lo-fi beats, right? But since we are taking a moment to set up the iPad, I'm gonna swap out and grab my water instead of coffee here. And yeah, I'm gonna get the iPad set up. Give me like 30 seconds. Okay. So almost done here. Don't mind me. You see. Okay, cool. Let's swap over, make sure the iPad's looking. Okay. Yeah, after having all those issues earlier on, or like before I technically started streaming, I was worried that the iPad, that was one thing I didn't test, was the iPad's connectivity, and that kind of worried me. Not gonna lie, I was like, crap. As I started, I realized like I did not test the iPad, which is kind of a big thing to test. Yeah, don't mind me. It is both cold and hot right now, right? It's like Schrodinger's temperature. Like it's multiple things right now. We are in flux here in the Midwest where it's one moment, like yesterday it was almost 70 degrees, but then I think today's like down to like 50 and it'll be 40 in a little bit. And low of like 30. And like, but we've gone from that was like 10 degrees last week. And so my body doesn't know what it wants to do. Do I want a sweatshirt on? Do I want pants on? Do I want long socks on? Do I want two pairs of pants on? Do I want a thick sweatshirt? I don't know. And unfortunately, my body doesn't either. And it's not giving me any tips on what I should do. It's just either saying, hey, suddenly no, we're hot. Hey, suddenly no, we're cold. And given the fact that I'm here in the game room where there's a giant window blaring in on me, it makes the temperature fluctuation even more intense. But so for the sake of having stuff up on screen, right? Let's look at some cool, like I really like this piece. I don't think I grabbed this piece actually to draw or to study from, but let's grab a couple of these cool looking. Let's do more of the horizontal, like the landscapey ones, so I can have like 2 or 3 up. Do we have another one? So like something like this, right? Again, I really need to get Pure Ref back up on my computer here for streaming because I don't use that here anymore. Yeah, this week, so I'm going to make a mental note. This week, I want to do Pure Ref to have here on my computer so it's easier to do stuff like this that I want to do on stream. But I also really need to do, I've got my stream that like, there's the image where it starts up, but it doesn't say starting soon. It just looks like I walked away. And so I need to get like a slight animation that just says starting soon, like on the stream page. So when I load in and I'm not here yet, which is the point, like I purposely do that to let people trickle in before I start streaming officially. I need to convey that it's like, oh no, this is conscious, not like it's not broken, you know? But anyway, let's see if we can get, oh, fart, not what I wanted to do. Yeah, Pure Ref would really make this go a lot smoother. But we don't have time to do that right now. I'll do that off stream if I remember later. Spoiler alert, I'm probably not going to because I'm the worst. Yeah, I can't get, I'm trying to make it where like these all, you can see them on stream cleanly again. Had I done this with Pure Ref, it would be pretty easy. Basically what Pure Ref is like a way in which you can take pictures and just kind of slap them all together. Like, you know, when you're in Microsoft Word and you try and like move a picture and it breaks the whole thing you've typed up, it looks like a mess, right? It's kind of like, hey, we know those are issues. What if we just make a software that you can just slap pictures on and move them in any way, shape, or form? Like it's super, super logical. It works well. It's, yeah. Instead of doing what I'm doing here, which technically, if we look here, this is what the full screen looks like that I just made. Obviously, we don't see the one, but at least here on stream, you guys kind of can see stuff in the background then, so it doesn't look as stupid. Again, Pure Ref would go a long way. I bought Pure Ref too, so I feel like it's one of those ones where like I don't want to have to go through because I'm gonna have to like buy or like reinstall and find like my old license and do different things like that, which I'm not about to do on stream. Anyway, just double checking a couple things real quick. Did I blue sky was all good, right? Yeah. M Beetle. We got cool stuff. Sorry, they followed, or they liked my post about going live. These are kind of cute. That's kind of horrifying. I don't know what's going on there. You know, I'm not a fan of like gross things. That was a gross thing, but cool. But okay. So I did, just for the sake of showing off what I was doing last time, right? So I did do more of Squirrel Girl. Okay. Oops, where's going on? Why don't I see my stream? Okay, sorry. So I did do more Squirrel Girl. Very graphic, very dark, right? Like I normally do. She doesn't look bad. I definitely want to finish her this week. Hopefully. But you can see what I'm saying, like the way I color is not quite, it's very flat and comic booky, which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with one way or the other. I just want to grow, right? I want to expand and learn. And to do that, I need to study. So this is looking okay. And I think we can definitely make some cool stuff happen with this week at some point. But I don't feel like doing that on stream right now. I think it would be more who of me to do something different. And I know I wanted to do this Luna this week that I had roughed in last weekend, I think. Nope, not going to happen, right? I'm going to take over here. So right here, I had taken a handful, right? I just took a lot of the King of Fighters images, basically, and I slapped them on here. I cut out the backgrounds so they can actually be, you know, transparent. I had to actually paint out Mai's here because she didn't have a solid background. But so what I want to do is just take a moment, right, and actually analyze. And then once I'm done looking at it, I want to, like, just paint chunk by chunk even, right? And kind of get a grasp of how I can make stuff look similar in a way that I like it. So like maybe I'll just paint something like this leg, or I'll paint this pant or something at first, right? But if we're just taking a look at what they've done, okay? So I just want to look at stuff. Right now, don't mind me just watching. So like we talked about, we've got these, so I'll use my, what color should we use? Like, I feel like they don't have a lot of purple. Or green. They don't have any green, so I'll use green as my color so it doesn't get lost. So if we look at stuff like, ooh, what do I have here? Why does this pencil look so weird all of a sudden? My sketching pencil looks hideous. Weird, what is going on? Let's do fill instead. There we go. Everything looks really grainy for some reason on this file. Isn't it? I don't know what's going on. Like they look like pixelated almost. I don't know. I don't know if that's coming across on your guys' end. 7x17, 300 DPI. The standard sRGB. For the eye. Yeah, everything looks fine. I don't know why it's being weird. What if we just close out the iPad, or close out the Procreate? How do you do that again? Close everything and now start it back. I don't know, still feels weird. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So if we're looking at the style of things, right? So there's two things I noticed right away. One is we talked about the outlines, right? Their outlines aren't all black or one color for that matter, right? They themselves have variation in them. Like I don't think they just use one single line. Like, because these colors differ. Like this color is definitely different than this color. Yeah, it's lighter and darker. So not by like a whole lot, but there is some variation in their lines. And obviously this is a shitty quality picture. Like it's not their source file. But like stuff like this then intrigues me. Their outline goes from blue to the red color here then, right? At this break. And that works really well. But why did they do that? Well, light's coming from here then, right? So it's casting light on all of these pieces. I'm honestly at a loss, like logistically, why that would be a different color, other than it just looks good. But if we look, it looks like this is a little bit more red, and then this is a little bit more red. This is a little more red. And, well, I have my there, so I can't actually see what's... Yeah, I don't know. This is a weird part, because I'm trying to do studies, and I don't understand the logic, but it looks good. It's hard to know. So I guess you could chalk it up to like how I talk about when I do like my gradients for the body, but like even here you can see that their pen changes values. Weird. Maybe we'll catch it like as I look at more stuff. Maybe it'll make more sense, be a little more clear. Or maybe it won't, and that's just, you know. Man, I'm super hungry today. Don't mind me. I'm already having my second piece of chocolate. I'm just... Yesterday was one of those days where like I had been going nonstop, and so I was starving by the end of the night, despite eating my normal food, you know, amount. And it was one that I just could not be satisfied from hunger, you know. So I woke up today and my stomach was just growling. But look at that. So this is the color of the shirt, right? That's the color of the shirt. Obviously, there's terrible artifacting. It looks really dumb. This is the color of the shadow, right? Like we do with skin, they actually take a color in between. I'm just trying to see like what they do. So do they do more of like a... I want to try and see if I can use my watercolor brushes. So that's why I'm looking at this. My brain looked at these paintings and I thought about being like, what if it's... Because in the process, I want to make a better process for me. So like I'm looking at the colors here. I'm thinking, okay, well, if they paint with maybe a solid brush, okay, but then they add values with something different. So I was trying to see what I like. So watercolor gives this kind of texture. It isn't bad. Whereas the gouache that I was using also gives its own distinct texture. Which again, is not bad in one way or the other. I think I still like the gouache more. I feel like I have more control over it with the shader. But I wonder... Because the watercolor is an interesting thing, because watercolor, the way watercolor works is the more strokes, usually the darker it gets, right? Instead of pressure. But I almost wish I could have pressure instead. Like it was, you know what I mean? Like this was actually done by pressure. But then we've got like, I really like this one. This is my Max brush, toothy gouache. And like, I really like the way the smudge looks on this. So I want to utilize, I'm just thinking of like what brushes I want to use to make these things that can be similar energy to what they do anyway, right? So I think something like that is worth exploring. So again, just kind of using my normal fill brush and then adding on more. But so what I want to look at too, like I said, is this in between, right? This transitional color. I'm curious how they get there. Because if we go from this color to this color. Can I use the picker? I can't remember how this works on iPad. Nope. So can I have the color wheel open as I... No. Because I would like to look at it move in space in the color wheel. So if we go from here, is there no way to do that? This would be so much easier on Photoshop then. Can you not dock this? There we go. How do we get more information though? You can't. I want to see the hue and saturation. You can only do that if it's not docked. But anyway, so we can see from here, right? It is a greenish, it's teal. But then the darker we get, obviously, the more blue we get. But then this middle color, what do they choose? So they just take a very saturated version of the shadow almost. Is that what I'm seeing? So they go from this to almost just a pure saturated version of the shadow. So if we look at something like that ourselves, right? And we take that information, if this is our shadow color that we made, and we just make it a little lighter and more saturated, and then we slap that in between. This is kind of the way that they choose their colors, I think, for this transitional piece. And that looks really good. I really like that. So basically, again, it looks like they take their shadow and just say, what if we give a little bit of transition with like a saturated version of the shadow? Okay, I can see that. And the way that they handle going into shadow, like we said, is just like what we normally do, is go bluer, right? And a little desaturated and darker. That's pretty simple. Let's see if they do the same thing with their reds then. So let's say this is base color, they're red. Oh, that is the watercolor. Let's get back to our fill brush for more ease of use. So if this is base color, right? And then they add shadows. Again, just going barely. Can you guys see that? What I'm looking at is the little dot on the hue saturation value, or like the, you know, the hue value slider, right? So do you see that little red dot, the circle on the, like, above this piece here, the blue that I'm tapping, this thing, right? That little red dot there, right? It goes just like a smidge, like a pixel to the blue, right? They're really not leaning into it too much for the basic colors like this red. Their red shadows aren't saying like, hey, they need to be hella blue. But it's like just the slightest bit that they put in there. So again, I'm not a huge fan of this fill brush being used for anything other than filling. So I really like this gouache brush still. This is still one of my favorite brushes. I don't know what it is about this. I really vibe with it. So like, let's say they do something like that with the shadow. That would mean they would literally just do, what do we say? Just a little brighter and more saturated here then for a transition, right? Just super slight. And that looks really clean, right? Like this red transition looks so much better doing it that way. Let's do a comparison, right? I need to reorganize these brushes too. Once I'm done with this, I need to reorganize these. So you've got this type of transition. That's getting a lot of the white in there. We don't want that. So there's this. This one versus this one. Do we see how much more smooth? Again, I don't know. Okay, sorry. As usual, random spam in here. Garbage. Get out of here. But look how gorgeous this gradient becomes. The shadow looks so friggin' better than the shadow, this one. Because there's this slight change happening here, right? This little bit of color is amazing. And so if we're doing something like that, how do we incorporate that in other tones though? So the blues and the reds, that reads. How do they do it with skin is my question, okay? So if we're going to grab a basic skin tone here, we're going to fill in our brush, big old fill brush. Normally my brain would go, let's say, what am I thinking? My brain would go, if this is the color, for shadow, I would do maybe something like this. See, that's really dark. What did they choose? Okay, so I'm not far off from what they do. So they went from the light color that we already had here, right? To their color. So what did I choose? So, okay, that's a big thing is my brain goes too far every time, right? Like I'm very hard in my movement in the slider. So what I need to do is just move it. I wonder if I adopt this guy instead, right? So I feel like it's easier just to nudge it a tiny bit rather than moving this guy. I don't know. But anyway, so again, what they do is they'll just take it and go like a pixel over. I wish we could make this color picker larger. I don't. Ah, stupid Procreate. You're really dumb sometimes. So again, they would just take it and say, let's make it a smidge there, a smidge here. Still, see, even my color still gets a little too far on the slider. How do they do it in like one little bit? Again, I think this is the move, is this guy. I hate it though. I've always not liked the wheel. I love this. I love it in a square. I don't know why my brain seeing this in wheel form versus like the circle versus square throws me off, which seems so silly, right? It's the same thing. It's just in a circle. I like seeing it in a square. I don't know why. Okay. So if we grab this and say we go a smidge darker and a smidge darker, a smidge more blue, and then a smidge darker and a little more saturated. How far do they push it? So they go down. They don't go much more saturated, which kind of makes sense because they add the saturation then after, right? So if you were to do that, and then what they do with that is they say, okay, what if we just make it a little like this? And this is the transition then, right? That's a terrible, I got very antsy in my blending here. That transition looks better, yeah. I still don't like I feel like I like the use of this more with the non-skin tones. Let's try this again then. Let's break it back down, okay? We're going to grab some fill. So we're just going to blop in again our skin color, right? So if we say here's our skin and here's our darker shadow, right? Let's look at the color wheel again as we pick. Huh. Interesting way of colors. Okay. Those add a few different. And then let's say like a lighter version here. Okay. So there's a lot there. But let's say then like they do just slightly. I hate the wheel. It's the circle. It just looks stupid. A slight bit of saturated color in between, right? Because again, that's how they've been doing everything else. And then if we were to kind of blend this all together, how does this feel then? That looks pretty organic then. I think so. What do you guys think? Definitely looks more organic that way. Okay, so breaking that down further, let me see where they have highlights though, because they don't really have too many highlights on the skin. They just kind of have, I mean, you could argue they're highlights, but like, what do we got? So again, let's block in some color. We're just going to keep color picking and doing random studies on each part of the body, just looking at how they transition. So light to shadow, right? What if... Okay, my fill brush does not do opacity well, it looks like. I don't like this fill brush with opacity difference at all. But the gouache kind of does that. It has like a decent transition. So I wonder if it's like we have our block in with fill of like hard and lights. And then I go up a little and put that little transitional piece in, right? The terminating line, the terminator. That skin looks good, right? And now what they do in an interesting way too is they line their work with a very, so what is this color then? What do they choose? They kind of take their shadow value, it looks like, and then break it even further down. Which I like this, but I wonder if something like this, right? The way I do my weird like heavy line work, I'd be curious if I could adopt both, right? If this style of painting would work with my heavy ass line work, you know? Because I still stand by, I really like thick lines. And obviously I'm trying to study this person who does not do thick lines, so I'm not saying I need to do that in this instance, but in terms of my own way of adopting, right? When we talk about folding pieces in, how do I take that my way, right? Can I adopt this to be more akin to how I would make a mark? But what's interesting is this color then, this line, doesn't appear for their pieces at all anywhere inside, right? These are just external lines. I never see them use them, right? Because look, even right here, you would think it would continue in through the deltoid here, the rear delt, this part, right? This muscle, this big boy, but it doesn't. It cuts here and then back around. Nowhere really do these extreme outlines intersect the actual shape inside. And I kind of really like the look of that, like a lot. But it is an interesting take because, like I said, for me, with my heavy comic book like outlines, how do I adopt that, right? Don't know. We'll figure it out together. But for now, I'm enjoying breaking these down. So let's look at some more colors just to kind of look at how they do a little more like extremes. So like we did these shadows for the blue of the pants, but like what do they do for the crotch, right? These tighter, closer, deeper shadows, right? So if we're looking at their blues, right? So again, this is like their base pant leg, right? If that's their color, it's a little dark actually, but that's fine. What do they do for their highlights? Aren't that drastic, right? So if we look at the color wheel, they go just a little away, a little lighter, and a little more saturated. Like a little lighter, a little more saturated, and then a smidge. It's always weird when the color is blue because where do you go? If going towards red would be purple, that's not where you want to go. You want to go more towards blue away from red, I guess, which is more green. And so their shadows, or I'm sorry, their highlights similar to that, but then their darks. This is like they do the opposite with their blue. Interesting. So instead with blues, what they're doing is they're going deeper blue then for the shadow, almost purple, right? So those are the colors kind of that they've got established, and they still do. So if this is the shadow, let's try what we analyzed before with their other values. If we take that same color, don't change the overall wheel, but then just say, hey, let's grab this and saturate it and lighten it up, right? And we put that in there. Let's see how this looks then if we kind of mash it all together. Oops, got a little bit of the white inside of that, not what we wanted. It's the white from the background is what the white comes from then. Yeah, those colors read really well then, adding that little bit of Terminator. So I know I tried to incorporate that with my skin more, but now looking at how they utilize it with everything in this painting, I think that looks fantastic. And you can push it one extreme or the other, obviously. But I think that is a cool way of doing it. And again, if they go with their liner, my thought would be, okay, they go darker. So if that's their shadow, they probably go like maybe like this. Let's see how close I was. So they desaturated, I forgot. Do they though? So if this is, where's the shadow? This is the shadow. They saturated it for the skin. Let's see, is it just for skin they saturate the outlines? And then for non-skin things, they actually desaturate? Let's look at some other colors. Okay, let's look at the red. So here's the red. And the outline for the red. Oh, that's just like hella dark. That's a bad example, I guess. Let's look at the red up here then. This is the red. And this. Okay, so yeah, so it looks like every color. Yeah, let's try one more. I mean, you can't really desaturate that. That was already hella desaturated, the color. What if we look at over here? We're color picking from the other pieces, but what if we look at like somebody else, like here? Here's their brown color, right? And what is the outline? A little darker in general, not much desaturated or less or more. So let's look where we got. Let's look here. This is a good example because this is an orange though. So I wonder if it's, yeah, this is hard trying to break down how they look at these colors. So that's more saturated. So I wonder if it's a warm color they saturate and if it's a cool color they desaturate, basically, for their outlines. Yeah, it seems like that's kind of the trend actually. So warm colors get saturated outlines and cool colors get desaturated outlines. More or less. Obviously, that's a gross generalization, but kind of what they're doing. Again, just trying to establish a pattern, like to understand what their brain does, all right? When they pick a color, what are they doing? What are they thinking? And to do that, sometimes you just need to literally copy what they're doing, like look at the exact colors. So reds, yellows, oranges, saturate them a bit for the outlines, whereas kind of cool them down and desaturate for those cool colors. Again, looks like they don't stick to that 100%, but kind of like a jumping off point, right, to think about. So if we're thinking that, then where do they do that? I still don't understand this shift in color. Like the logic other than it looks good. And again, that comes down to just like we've talked about is getting your reps in, right? Like doing something a lot and knowing what looks good. There might not be a rhyme or reason, right? Sometimes looks good because looks good. Just like our Bob Ross quote, doo-doo until no doo-doo, right? And that's kind of the logic when it comes to things like that. But so since we're here still doing this, I want to just keep doing these little bits of value studies and really break down what they are thinking, or at least what they're trying to accomplish, right? So let's take, sorry, bumping my microphone. It's going to take a while for me to get used to this stupid color wheel, I'm not going to lie. Working in color wheel form rather than, because so for those who don't know, I love my classic view. This to me has so much more control. I'm still going to stick with this. Screw it. I said I'll try and use it. No. The classic look, I'm an old man. My classic look is how I pick colors. And I'm not changing. You can't tell me. So we'll try and replicate then, okay? So we've done a little bit of their pants already. So let's look at like, what do we think base color of pant is? Let's say this is their base color because they don't do too many highlights, right? So let's say this is base color, okay? The way they've been color picking would say their shadows would be maybe if they're saturating their blues, something like this, okay? But they desaturate their shadows, right? Damn it. So what they do is actually they'll go a little more blue, but they desaturate and darken, right? So they end up with a little bit more of this kind of vibe. And I'm using my fill brush, which is not the brush I want to be using. I use my gouache shader. So they do more of like this kind of energy, right? But then they do like an in-between. So I wonder if I use my gouache and I can just pull these in-between colors and use these then as like, you know what I mean? Again, I'm not doing exactly what they do, but I'm trying to think of like a way to replicate a similar energy. So if I take that one color, use my gouache, which gives me intermediary colors, and then I can use those values as in-betweens elsewhere, right? And so we looked at doing those in-between terminator values, right? I don't want to do that then for everything, but their logic says go a little lighter, a little more saturated, right? And then let's follow that to make it thinner, the brush. And they do this gentle extra light blue then, right? Just a little to make it transition better to this dark. Again, I'm not drawing what they drew here. I was just drawing shapes. akin to it. So they still have a lot of harder edges. I feel like when I start blending too much, the blends happen too much, right? They feel like a little too blended. The way I make lines is more distinct. And even the way that they're doing lines is more distinct, right? But if we're practicing, let's say we want to make like an outline for this, right? What would the color be? If we said blues, they darken and desaturate just a smidge for their outlines, right? From their darkest shadow. So it would be something like this then would be the outline, I would think. Like the line work, I mean, like. And I think that that shape reads really well then. I like these colors. Again, studying theirs, they do singular outlines. Knowing me, I always want to do internal lines, and then it gets too messy though, right? Like I do my internal heavy lines. But I do really like the fact that they commit to not doing any internal lines, right? The internal work is all painted. The external work is the line work. Again, when I practice this on my own drawings later, we can see how maybe I can accommodate, or like maybe I can do breaks with like heavy shadow, you know? But that's for another time to test. But like my brain immediately says, yeah, what if this is in deep shadow? So the line's real thick. I'm a sucker for thick lines, man. I kind of do like that still. Again, we'll see how we can incorporate this methodology into my own, right? But so looking more into creating a method, let's say, of painting, because that's my big thing is I don't have like a rhyme or reason. So my painting always is just paint. I'm a paint color and then I'm going to paint some shadow and I'm going to do some Terminators and it'll be good, blah, 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 right? It's not been consistent. So I kind of want to establish a workflow right now, today, while I'm studying. So to clean up my brushes then too, that'll help. Because I like my toothy brush, because that's actually what I use for my smudge. But what is let's look again. What does my gritty one look like again? Okay. That's got more of a distinct lighter texture to it as opposed to the shader brush that I like to use. And then like I said, I wanted to use watercolors, but I feel like the watercolor brushes watercolors never vibe with the way I make marks, just because I feel like the fact that I go over twice and it looks different, right, is always weird to me, which obviously traditionally that's how I worked a billion years ago, but I've grown accustomed to digital. I'm spoiled. So let's keep messing with skin then as I look at other color, like brush techniques. So if we've got here, these are, so they are again desaturating a little bit for the shadow. So this is the normal color. This is the shadow. So slight desaturation. So let's do that ourselves. So if this is the color, we desaturate a smidge, darken a smidge, and then move slightly away from the red, right? Did we not? Oh, I didn't actually darken it though, doy. Something like this then for shadow, right? A cooler shadow, right? Getting slightly away from the reds. And then let's say we want to do a highlight. What do they do for highlights? If this is the skin, they go a little more red, right? A little lighter, a little more saturated, and a little more red, okay? So let's do that too. We take the red, the space skin, go. Oh my God, I hate this slider though. I wish I could do like a zoom in. The iPad just doesn't work for me with this. Slightly more red, slightly more saturated, and a little bit lighter for like more of this, like not necessarily highlight, but just brighter skin tone, right? And we can lighten it a little more if we really want to give it like this nice highlight there. And so I think the logic still applies. So if we want to do like a Terminator, I wonder if we do the same thing that, oh my gosh. If we do like the Terminator, right? And we do it kind of in between these values. There's a little orangier color, right? And do the same thing here with the shadows. We basically go a little more saturated and a little lighter, right? And that's how we establish this in-between color for the shadow. And now if we just kind of smoosh it, right? Because we're lazy. And if this were on Procreate, I do it this way. But on Photoshop, it's a lot easier to color pick repeatedly. So I feel like I can color pick in between colors more fluidly. Whereas on the iPad, I don't like doing it with Procreate. So smudge brush for days on the Procreate app. So just trying to see like if these colors look good together and if this is, again, a good methodology for picking for colors the way we want to paint. So it's a little harsh, right? But it's not bad. I think we need to maybe lean in a little bit more to, well, no, actually I like that. And then if we're doing our logic, right? So let's go to our shadow color. Here's our darkest shadow. Go back to my liner, right? And now let's go a little desaturated and a little darker. And there we go. Yeah. You can see it. I like this method. I like the way that they paint this. And again, it looks like they can always, instead of always going super desaturated, if we go back to the color, I forgot. They're warms, we lied. They're warm colors, they saturate and go darker. They're cool colors, they desaturate. So that's why that looked weird. There we go. So we warm up the dark for the outline here, right? Warm colors get warmer outlines, whereas cool colors get cooler outlines. Yeah. Logic makes sense. Let's look at what else. So the way that they seem to make marks though is they take heavy shadows first and they kind of sculpt it in, right? So we've been looking at a lot of these colors. Let's look at Mai actually here because Mai's leg, right, has so much variation in color. So they go from this light peach. Let's say this is the standard color here, right? And then they go to down here, which is a much, what do? They saturate it, they warm it, and they darken it a smidge, which is exactly what we said for skin. Okay. And then for the highlight, if this is the base color and this is that, they're like areas of slight lighter space. The exact opposite. Yep. Now, what's this color though? Look at this. This is a little more bluish, right? So they go a little heavier into that red. So not even bluish, it's a heavy red. Okay. What about down here? This feels bluer to me, right? It definitely is. So what they did is they surpassed the red and went like a smidge. So I think this is my takeaway that I've talked about too, is my brain always goes like, I think in inches, okay? Everything I'm doing is in inches. But they're moving in centimeters, right? Centimeters is a different completely. My brain always wants to say, yeah. Let's go. Like my stupid brain goes, here, I'll show you how dumb I am, right? My brain says, this is skin, and then I go, yeah, shadow. Let's make it like real different and dark, right? Like real blue, and then you have it heavy. That's a style, all right. You can totally do this. I'm not saying you can't, but like you got to know that that is not going to look super organic then, right? If you do something like this. This will look cool in a certain way, but that's like a very distinct red, right? That's me thinking in inches, right? 100% thinking in inches. However, what they do is think in centimeters, right? So they take this, and then instead of thinking in inches like Lizard Brain Britton, they say, no. We will saturate a little, darken a little, and go slightly closer, right? And then they have their color. And then for that terminating color, right, they have this, but then they say, okay, we lighten it and saturate it at the same time. And they put that in between. And we get this really clean terminating line, right? That looks good. And then when you start mixing these together, and like I said, you're a lazy Procreate user who doesn't want a color pick, when you mix all of this, it should look far more like organic. Like I said, the way I color pick is so extreme. Whereas this, that looks so much softer and more natural, right? Like way more natural. And then you can always go back in if you want to, like, if you lost some of these darks, put them back in, sure. Don't shy away from that. But like, you can see the difference, right? In thinking in inches and thinking in centimeters. And so thinking in, oopsies, click the wrong button on my phone real quick. My bad. Thinking in centimeters is so much more organic. And something I need to tell myself, I'm a person of extremes, right? I joke that I'm the day walker, that I've got like the weird, like anal autistic-y nature of certain things that I've gotten inherited from family. But then I know how to handle it. Whereas like I feel like normally then what that turns out to being is like, oh no, I just go extreme with everything though. AKA this weird color, which is what I normally end up doing. So I'm sure if we go back actually here, like I liked this piece, right? But you can see I went pretty extreme with these blues in her skin, like hella extreme. That is legitimately effing blue. Because I'm thinking in inches. 100% in inches. Does this look bad? No. Because I thought in inches for the whole piece. So like it's cohesive. But if I thought in centimeters, we'd have a much smoother shadow, a much more organic and natural looking shadow, right? So I'd be intrigued to actually take like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like something I've already done and add, like redo the color for it. Like with this way of thinking now, right? So I don't want, I'd have to reinvent the wheel on this one. I'd have to like rethink of how I want to light that. What if, okay. Where is, I don't remember what's what here. So this is Zangief, okay. What did I have any? I do not, I think I got rid of all the working files for Zangief, unfortunately. Crap. Well, that doesn't help. Did I get rid of all of them? No way. Was it in this one I kept all the working? Okay. This was where I had all the colors and all the lines and all the, oh my goodness, this was messy. Holy cow. So let's duplicate this then, okay? Did it duplicate the wrong thing? The hell? What just happened? Duplicate. Am I dumb, chat? Oh my God, it duplicated it, but not in the folder. What the hell's the point of that? Duplicate it where I'm duplicating it. Okay, well, let's scroll back down, go back to the new challenger folder. And it still didn't. What is going on, iPad? Why you gotta be like this? New challenger. In. Okay, I don't know why you put it there. Here. Holy crap, Oli. Now. Let's. What am I? This is. I have not looked at these files in a long time. Bear with me. It's messy. So I don't want. Okay, so line work here. This is just for practice, a random scenario. I don't know if this is going to work. I just wanted like something that I already have colors to that I can just quickly like do this with, you know? So let's look. So if this is this, I don't need the sketch. Get out of here. Don't need this. Get out of here. Don't need the background. Get out of, oh, they're locked. Unlock it. Delete it. And other colors. Okay. I just wanted some. This is way more than I want. I just wanted to look at the shadows like this. So what I did was I did a soft light originally, right? And it was just black over the whole piece. But what if we take an idea of where these shadows are, just so my brain sees it. And now let's adopt the methodology of their shadow color picking, okay? So let's go in, make a new layer above this. Yes, I know the line work is black. It's going to look different. It's fine. Like this is obviously very different right now. We'll deal with that later. And obviously, like I like doing overall gradients and yada, yada, yada. Not the point. So let's look here and say, this is the color, okay? That's the base skin color. We want to saturate a chunk, darken a chunk, and slightly. I don't like that. So let's try that again. So we will saturate our color, darken it, and slightly red. Okay, so here's our shadow. So if we were to adopt, let's get rid of this. It's too distracting now. So if we were to say he's being he was underlit, right? I actually don't know what lighting I chose for this. This is kind of ambiguous. Anyway. Too big. Have like a little bit of this here. We're going to get rid of the scar on accident, but that's, you know, whatever. That's happening. Just adding a couple quick, like, again, I'm not trying to do this whole piece right now. I'm just trying to think of where I put shadows before, roughly, and see what it would look like if I did it a little more akin to how they've done it, especially with their terminating line too, and just seeing how different it could feel. So just softly blocking some of these pieces in of value. Are these shadows accurate? Nope. They're really not. But I'm just half-assing real quick, so. Of course they won't be. Oy, 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 oy. Like I said, this week is learning week for sure. I have been in a spot where I've been okay with what I've been doing, but I feel like I need to get better. And the only way to get better is to actually study stuff. And so why not study on stream for all to see, right? Hold me accountable. Yes, I'm well aware of my not accurate painting and how it's getting in the wrong spots too. Don't come at me, all right? This is educational purposes for quick down and dirty, okay? So there's some of the colors they would have picked rather than how I just, oh, I didn't do the face. The face doesn't matter. That's a whole other ball game. We don't need to look at the face. And then what they do is saturate, boop, and lighten, okay? And now let's put this in as a nice in-between color between all the heavy shadows. Doesn't need to be between all of them, but just like the bigger masses, right? So you don't want to overdo it. Okay, so this might not have been the clearest example to try this on. I just wanted something. But like looking at already parts of these things, I do like it. The colors feel more vibrant and feel more alive when you're coloring it this way, right? With this nice, again, their way of color picking seems to be very smart. And if we adopt something like this, maybe not exactly, but something along these lines, right? It'll definitely help us level up, if you will, right? I think my thing is I don't like using the smudge brush personally. I just use it because I don't like color picking in Procreate. And so then when I start smudging, I'm always like, this is ugly. Who smudges? You know, like it's not my thing. For those that like smudge brushes, cool, more power to you. They just have not grown on me. So obviously two very different looks. Also, I shaded them very differently. I eh. Either way, I think the color picking, right? The colors themselves, I think, worked well. So something like this is definitely worth exploring still further. What I did talk about is I liked the idea of taking these gouache brushes and taking like these middle colors and kind of incorporating them too, right? Like throughout the piece a little bit. So for the highlights then, we make it a little lighter. Oops, I mean a little saturated. But they go still towards more red. And then they've got like a little bit more of these peach colors in here then, right? Not even necessarily as highlights, but just as like color variation to the body, which helps it look rounder. But again, I need to get better with being more graphic a little bit with these colors. But yeah, definitely more alive painting it this way. Anyway, let's go back to the actual study that we were trying to do, because that was not quite as illustrated as I'd like it to be. Let's just go back. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Let's... what do we want to look at? I'm curious in their use of reds in the skin then, because Terry here is very not crazy amount of red, right? Let's get rid of Terry. Let's not look at Terry or okay. Let's close that layer out. Let's start a new one. And let's look at how they chose colors here then. Okay. Because the elbow, the nose, and all these, they've got a lot of reds in them. And same with down here with my. So what do? Let's unhook our color wheel so we can see it. We've got a little bit normal color here. So they're adding like pure red saturation to this. And if we look at where they're adding the color, right? Where does this red exist? The red seems to exist in points of bone. So it's more of, yeah, the bone. So obviously this is not a steadfast rule, but generally you've got what's referred to as subsurface scattering. It's the color in which like the blood and the cells and different things, they make the skin appear different colors, right? The subsurface scattering, the different bits and bobs essentially, right? You don't need to know the specifics. But generally, imagine your body, okay? And then imagine where the skin is thinner versus thicker. Right? Okay. Picturing that. Where do you see more of what's underneath then? Obviously, it would be the thinner area, right? And so if we look at this piece here, right? The thinnest skin is generally by your elbow. Like, yes, you have strong elbows, but in terms of like the bone, there's no muscle there. It's strictly skin to bone. Like obviously there's some tendons around there and stuff happening. I'm not saying there's no muscle, but like generally that's the biggest spot, right? So if we look at that, that is where they have really focused the red, right? Or the end of the fingers, right? Because there's not much fat. You've got like pads on the tip of your fingers, but really there's usually a lot of blood flowing through them. And there's not like a lot of other stuff between you and the mass underneath. And so here we can see they do it in the ear, which is some of the most common places for subsurface scattering is within the ear. In the ear, in the nose, in the elbow, in the fingers, right? And then if we look down at if we keep that trend going, right? Kind of in the knees, right? Kind of in the shoulders. I don't know why this brush is, oh, I'm drawing on the wrong layer. That would explain it. The shoulders, right? Again, like we established in the nose. If we're looking back up here, same thing still, ear, nose. Chin sometimes, right? If you feel your chin, I mean, depending on the size, you know, whatever. There might be more mass there, there might not be. But the chin then, you know, the jawline has a little bit more contact. So again, that's kind of the areas where they focus more of this reddish color. And obviously then if we look here, they focus a lot of the red then too on the shadow, but that's kind of to round this piece out, right? So I want then right now, if if today is just pure study, I want to color pick this arm and see their choices for this, okay? So let's grab my fill brush and we are going to just draw this arm, like half-assed. I'm not like drawing it for real. So if we've got like shoulder here into the bicep, right? Cool. Really big. Shoulder, bicep, forearm. Done. Again, I'm not drawing the arm. I don't care how accurate this is. From a structural perspective, I'm just simply wanting to paint it. And so if that is the base color, how do they go about carving in shadows, right? We established if this was their original color, their shadow, their hard shadow color generally is, we can look again, we can watch the colors change, right? It's a little more saturated, a little more red, a little warmer, right? And a good chunk darker, okay? So what they do then is use that to kind of start carving, I feel like, right? They carve the shapes more. Let's go with the gouache brush because I've been liking that more. So they carve these in, right? So if this is the forearm coming out, they'll carve in the forearm. They carve in the roundness of the forearm. We've got a little bit there, the brachialis, or no, that's still technically the brachialis, yeah. Carving these shapes. Again, yes, there's definitely color in between too, because it's more in shadow. But they just start, it looks like they just start carving these, right? Again, I understand this is not perfectly accurate to the arm itself, just trying to get their logic of painting down. And so the tricep here is pretty much heavily all in shadow, right? With just the brachialis kind of peeking through. And then a little bit of roundness. So they carve this in, but then it kind of ever so slightly is a curve in, right? Because it's the bicep here. A little bit of shadow maybe. And then how do we color pick from here? What are they doing? They do these heavy shadows. And then it looks like they go even heavier. So if this is the shadow, what is this shadow? So they go from, so they just double down, right? So if the initial shadow was a little more saturated and a little darker and a little warmer, they just say, let's crank that to 11 and do that one step further, right? And they'll go in and do, it looks like real intense. So kind of like where the ambient occlusion would be too, like where other parts are contacting. And then, like I said, the elbow into the tricep area. They're being very conscious, it looks like, with the use of this color though, right? This color is extremely powerful compared to the rest of the drawing. So they're not overdoing it, right? They're kind of like hedging the use of this just so it's like, it's impactful, right? We've talked about that before. If everything's dark, nothing's dark, or if everything's whatever, you know, and that's kind of the same logic being applied here. So they've chosen that like real saturated red. But now they have, let's say, these terminating colors, right? These in-betweens. So if we go to their shadows, what do they normally do? They darken it, or they lighten it and do that. Let's see how close these colors are when we color pick. Pretty dang close, right? So let's do ours just for whatever. And they put these in between these big shadows, right? But what's interesting now is we have two different types of shadows, right? We've got the extreme shadow and the not so extreme, right? So where do we draw the line? Do we do an extreme shadow Terminator 2? So do we take this red and say, what if this gets its own Terminator? And we draw a little bit too. So every color feels natural. I feel like for the skin, that's important, right? We need to really make sure those are all feeling right. And I think that looks okay. So now what they do is they take their other base color, right? So they take the base color, let's say, and they definitely go a little more saturated. You can't really go much lighter than this, can you? So I guess the only way to go, what do they do? So if this is where they go, they just go more white, I'm guessing. Okay, so they actually yellow out a little bit of the highlight and just desaturate it a smidge, right? So they're going to a little lighter and a little more desaturated of a color, and they plop in some of these highlights then. And they're not even necessarily like strong highlights, since the body and skin pigments have so much variation. It's not necessarily like it's, wow, this is a strong highlight, right? When you're doing it more organically, it's more of like, oh, this is the color variation rather than how, again, my lizard brain normally does it. Strong. Here's a white light, and it's like, nah, man, you need to chill. Okay, so this is a little better. Let's take our smudge, and again, I don't want to overdo it. I feel like that's my problem right now is I smudge brush too much because I don't like it, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you overdid it, man. So let's just go a little bit of softer approach. Making sure we accentuate the terminating lines though, right? These brighter colors are more saturated colors, right? So again, we're kind of approaching it a little differently than them in terms of like the smudging and the brushes we're using more gritty textured stuff. So obviously these aren't aiming to look the same, but I'm just trying to get the overall flow of how they paint, right? We talked about it before. It's not necessarily, imagine any sport, anything you do, right? You can watch someone do a thing and you can replicate doing the thing exactly, right? Like, hey, I paint like this. Or let's put it into like a sport. Let's say like, hey, when I'm shooting or passing, this is the form I keep. This is the exact spot I'm going to kick it every time. This is how I'm going to do it, right? When in reality, the game moves, right? Everything's a moving target in that sense. And so you can't just apply the technical way of doing it. You need to kind of break down and understand how and why do you do it, right? Why are you choosing to do it this way? Because if you don't have the why, then you're never going to get it right. Because you can have the technique, right? Or since we talk about Marvel Rivals all the time, right? Let's compare to a video game, more apt for me, right? Let's say you are playing as Spider-Man, right? And you sit in the practice range and you practice Spider-Man's like certain combos, like kill combos you can really obliterate people with. Cool. I'm glad you've practiced them. You've got them down pat. And then when you go to do it, you're doing it at the wrong time. And you're not doing it right. Because all of a sudden you're doing it at the wrong time. It's not the right moment. Or you do it and then it's like, okay, but that didn't help the team because I grabbed the wrong person. Or I did it when no one else was around, so it really didn't help anybody, right? Taking it one step further, since we're drawing fighting game characters, let's say you sit in the lab, right? We're sitting in the lab and we're practicing combos, right? I'm going to practice doing an uppercut, right? Let's say an uppercut is how to anti-air in most characters, right? We're doing an uppercut. Sure you can, right? Uppercut, uppercut, uppercut. But if you don't understand when you should be doing the uppercut versus when you should be doing a crouching medium kick to anti-air them, right? Or whatever, whatever your button is. Yes, you can do it, but if you're not doing it in the right context, if you don't get in the head of why you need to do it, then it's never going to be right. And so that's kind of why I want to break down. I don't want to break down, like, I don't care about the way they make these brush strokes. I don't really care because that's a means to an end. I want to know the logic behind the colors they're picking and why they're painting it that way. And so you can see here now, yes, our arms look different, and that's okay. I didn't want them to be the same, but they look the same in terms of value, which is what matters. And so now if I'm using this logic, I can take a little bit more, right? I can take some of these colors that I've already picked, and now I can hone in a little bit more of what I want to do with it, but still using the logic, right? Maybe I want a little bit darker here in the armpit. Right, okay. And then like here, I feel like the bicep is kind of lost a little bit, right? Namely because it doesn't have enough highlight. So if we took this before, what if we crank it a little more, right? Even more than what they did. Use their same logic, but now do it a little bit more extreme, okay? So adding a little more yellow and a little more white to really make these muscles have highlight. And again, we've talked about before, like how many layers you use, different things like that. This is one layer. I'm using one single layer, right? I'm not trying to do much. I'm just trying to study the colors. I understand the elbow. When I blocked in this color, this looks funny because the elbow technically does not extend properly here. That's just a block in problem. Like I said, I wasn't trying to draw the figure. I was just trying to get the shapes in. The shape here, yes, is a little weird, but that's not the point we're trying to take home, right? But so then the last bit, right, is they do a cool way of lining. So they take their base shadow. Okay, so let's take that red. And they say, what if we desaturate it? No, for the reds, the warms, they saturate it and darken it even more, right? So then they go in and give this nice outline for their line work. But again, not intersecting the shapes in any way. Granted, this is a pretty thick brush now in context of this. So it does feel a little heavy-handed. They do look like they cross a little. So let's say they're crossing just to tell the shape, right? So that form is actually in front of the bicep. And they do, it looks like, they don't really outline in the shoulder much, but they do that tiny little bit right here. So I feel like they utilize overlapping shape to tell the story of what direction the thing is moving in, which is smart. And something I love to do myself. So you know I'm going to adopt stuff like that. But now my lizard brain, as we've talked about, my lizard brain always goes, yeah, but what if you make it darker? Right? It's like the demon on my shoulder, like, but what if you do more? Do more. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to try it. Let's see what it looks like in the context of this arm that we just blocked in, right? What happens if we do more, right? How does this look? What if I do my way of doing heavy shadows through line work? Will it look stupid? Probably, because it doesn't vibe with this style. But is it bad or is it just different? I think my biggest problem is I can't do these inner lines that I like to always do like that. I wonder though, if I do something like, if I keep my chunky boys, right? And slight intersections, right? Nothing drastic. Slight overlap only through major intersection points to denote the movement of the shape, right? Like that. But I wonder if there's a way then that I can take, instead of this lining brush, can I take it, or do I like make it hella thin? Hella thin. That's what my stupid ass always wants to do. I want to add these inner lines, but I don't think that looks good either. I'm trying to just think of like a way to get these shapes across the way I like. Yes, I'm trying to understand how they do it, but how do I fold that into what I do, right? Because I don't want to just paint this way now. Like, yes, I see the way they've done this. I use this logic, but that doesn't mean I just paint it that way. I don't know. I do know though, I'm going to take a super, super duper quick bathroom break and I'll be right back. One moment. Sorry. Yeah, streaming longer is different energy. Sorry. So while I was taking my bathroom break, we've got art in the whole house, right? And I was quickly trying to take a peek. So I've got art above me, around me, every which way. And I was trying to see, like, what do they, like, in terms of melding styles of what I'm trying to draw right now, right? How do I, like, maybe look at how they do lines and they do overlapping shapes, right? Sorry. I got too hungry. Again, like I said, my hunger level all out of whack. I will say, using the smudge brush, if I want to go faster, I bet the smudge brush slows me down. It's just a whole other step, you know? That said, I do like the way it looks, though. What if I've been talking about this damn watercolor brush that I really wanted to utilize somehow. Nope. Looks like we're still not using this watercolor brush. It's like, stop trying to make fetch happen kind of thing, right? Like, where it's like, I really just want to make it work, though. I really like it. Oh, goodness. What was this brush again? Oh, this is the another watercolor one. The shadow one that I named. Okay. And then my fill layer here. Yeah. I don't know what it is. None of these do it for me. I'm just like looking through all of my brushes. Like, does anything look good? I can do like a good transition to a little bit darker, right? Like a little bit more of a solidified shadow, right? Like, here's some charcoal brush like. Yeah, it just changes the energy so drastically in like a not super great way. They're huge, huge hatching. Why is this so big? You do? I wonder if we take like a highlight like this and we almost like not reverse hatch it, but like we go with a lighter color on it. Talking about things that take more time, right? Just seeing what looks good, what doesn't. I've always liked cross hatching, but I feel like I can never get it to look quite the way that I want it to. So I always end up not using it. I kind of named this brush Abomination, and I don't even know what it does. What did I just paint? Mm-hmm. Why is this texture brush so ridiculous? It looks like he's got like some sort of condition. Does not look as clean as I'd like it to. What if we make it more of the skin color? That looks good. Adding that slight bit of texture. What if we lower the opacity even more? Again, these are like more finely rendered versions of what I'd like to do, though. I'm trying to simplify my forms, but what if we then take this? Oh, F, why is it not on freehand? Yikes. Copy pasta. What if we take this same arm now, right? And what if we... There. What if we try it with a different brush? And I commit to the whole time. Like, what about the dynamic? Oh, crap. I forgot the dynamic brush changes, like, drastically the colors. I do not like that. Holy fart. That is ugly. But realistically, like, the way that they do it is more singular stroke based, which I think is fine. Like, but I do like the texture. I just don't like the idea of having, like, when I use my smudge brush, it's just that extra step that takes too long, right? If my whole thing is I'm trying to be a little quicker, a little more cohesive with my, you know, line making and stuff and brushing, adding that step just slows me down, which again isn't the worst thing in the world, but I don't know. I still do think that technique is the best for me. Like, me, for my money, the color in that way, but yeah, we'll just keep the way we were doing it. Anyway, let's do the same thing and now study something different, okay? So let's just take... Let's do a different character. So we did all these random blotchy paintings of... Let's draw his arm then, okay? If we're going to use... So this was a lot warmer, we realize now, right? Like, looking at this, he's a lot warmer. This Terry is hella cool. Like, he's really desaturated, really. So let's try and just do a quick study of how they painted that. So again, I'm just going to take their base. Let's say that's the base, okay? Let's crack open a new layer. And let's just draw it. We're just going to draw, not the hand. We're just going to draw a shoulder. Like the actual arm that's visible. So what do we got? We got like shoulder. Again, doesn't need to be accurate. I'm just trying to get the overall look. Shoulder, bicep. Big bicep. He's a beefy boy. And then the forearm. We're not going to draw the full hand and forearm, right? It'll just be kind of something like that. Holy that's the wrong brush. Again, not trying to be perfectly accurate, just kind of want the idea of the arm so we can quickly paint in a bit. Right? That looks about close enough to the arm. So again, what they do is they take, again, I don't know what they do actually. What we think is done and how we're adopting the process, right? We're going to take it and go more of the saturated color, right? This is a very grayed out version. I'm not a huge fan of that. I like this. This feels alive. So let's try to go like we said. So they normally, right, if we broke down their color picking methodology and how mixing how we normally do it too, right? Thinking in centimeters instead of inches, right? I'm not drastically changing these. I'm just going to take it just a smidge, okay? Saturate it up and then darken it up, okay? And now we're going to carve in the shadows, right? Kind of hard where I chose to draw this because my hand's covering it and I can't see it. But that is my problem, not yours. I say that, I'm going to move it. I can't see it as I'm drawing it. So they carve in the shoulder, the bottom of the deltoid here, right? We carve in the shadow of the tricep a bit. We're going to carve in a little bit of this bicep fold. And then realistically, it's a lot of this in shadow. A lot. Okay. So if that's all the shadows, and they do 2 passes, right? They've done 2 passes. I'm going to do 2. Or I like when they did 2 passes. So we're going to look at it in twofold. Breaking these a little bit more down. And now they did the same thing, right? So let's say they crank it a little further, crank it a little further, crank it a little further. Nothing too drastic, but enough. So then if we put in a secondary shadow, right, just to really drive it home and think of where these would exist, right? So it exists very much between the folds and then these heavy areas created by the harder parts of your arm right there, like the elbow and stuff like that. A little too extreme. Okay, so we block that kind of stuff in. We give a little bit of breathing room. This shoulder looks really overly dark. There's still light coming in. And then how we do it, right? We're going to take these terminating colors. So we take our shadow, and what we're going to do is just, like we said, we're going to raise it in saturation and brightness. Boop. Just crank those in the middle. But I realize I forgot to switch to my gouache brush this whole time, and that's why it's been looking kind of weird to me. We put these in for the middles. These transitions, right? This is going to look kind of weird because I was using the wrong brush with the wrong opacity this whole time. So now everything's going to be a little off, but that's fine. And then we'll take the dark shadow and do the same thing though, right? Make it a little brighter. Not too drastic with this one though. And now, what if we just smudge it all together? Get these transitions a little smooth. again, I know I keep reiterating, I'm not trying to make it look like they're painting, right? I'm trying to learn the way that they pick colors and kind of go from there, right? I'm not trying to replicate the exact same paint style of anything, right? I'm trying to just get their understanding and my way now of adopting their way of color picking to my own. And so in this instance, yes, we're going more of the warmer colors based off of the other drawing, but still using their same logic. So it's not going to look the same color palette wise because theirs is a very desaturated version of using skin tones. And I'm trying to practice their more saturated way of doing it. So it's going to have a little bit of discrepancy, but it'll still have a similar feel. Or not. And I messed up, but you know, that was the plan. My girlfriend overdid it we haven't been to the gym in a while. She overdid it going back and she injured herself, and she was very gung-ho on saying, I'm going to the gym now tomorrow, which was yesterday, so saying it for today. And I said, you're setting yourself up for failure using that type of language, right? If you're injured, you can't guarantee what you're going to do, right? You can't. So don't say, I'm going to, say, I plan on it, right? I plan on going to the gym tonight. Because then if you don't, if you say, I'm going, and then all of a sudden you can't go because your injury is still too bad, right? Well, then now your brain is like really pissed because you were so set on going. But you can plan to go versus actually, you know? And I know it's a simple like shift in just vernacular, really. But sometimes that little bit of changing of the way of how you are approaching an idea helps your mindset, and especially kind of helps it when there's setbacks, then that it doesn't feel as bad. So this kind of looks ridiculous right now. I get that. But like when you zoom out, you see the whole thing I'm talking about, that like the arm is still pretty much there. The color's a little different, but I want it to be a little more alive. So then using that same idea that we've done already, can we do it for the highlights now, right? So we'll take the color. It's already pretty bright, so we'll go a little yellow and a little brighter. Just kind of slap in. Little. Okay, so again, visually very different than what theirs looks like, but that's fine. It's worth noting then how they go through and they'll add, right? We can soften up areas now too that were a little too harsh now because we generalized. And what you can do is you can kind of just bring a little bit of that life back into it. Yeah, this was the wrong shape. I don't know what I was thinking. It got kind of borked here, but like this should be pushed out. The forearm is definitely the wrong shape, but that's okay. Just kind of like fudge it a little bit. And then we take the shadows, the darkest reds, right? And again, for skin, it seems like they saturate it. Oh, good. I told you the struggles of my mother flying this morning, so she just landed. So all is good. So we take the color, saturate it, and darken it, right? And now that's kind of what they're using for lines. So let's try and see if we can do the same thing. This is where I'm curious how we handle this, because dark line work here is too much of an overlap. So what they do is they keep their slight little outline, but then it's like they have almost a different color as a liner. So they take their base shadow color then and almost use that as a continuation of that shadow line, which is kind of smart. And then that's what they use for the line. Okay, for the bicep kind of going into it. Can maybe darken it a smidge. But it's still within that same family of color, right? So there's a break in the shape, but it doesn't feel as drastic. Also, now that I'm looking at this, the colors feel a little off. The shape of the bicep doesn't make sense here. So we kind of need to pull this down a little. So we'll pull a little more of the shadows real quick, sorry. Paint that back in. And so we can take that same idea for both parts of the intersecting, right? Because the deltoid here really does intersect and it's pretty prominent, so it seems weird not to. So I kind of like the idea, what if we continue that line though as part of the other line, right? The part that, if it has a part that intersects, maybe we like draw it on top of that line too. That kind of looks cool, right? I like that. I made the deltoid way too rounded though. It should be cutting in a little more harsh. Again, part of the problem of I didn't really draw this arm out. I just kind of started with a block in of shape. But already using this then as like a thicker inner line, I kind of like. So now I can harden up these shadows that I liked here and kind of make it more drastic. Boop. So again, this arm is definitely a lot warmer, right? But still using similar color picking ideology as the other arm. So a little different, but not too drastic. I think part of it too is the shadow. I think that's what's throwing me off right now too, is the shadow on the arm is not as pronounced as it should be. And I think that's a good takeaway, is I still need to remember to keep hard shadows, even if I'm trying to do this more softer approach. Keeping these hard shadows in between is still important. I can't like go one or the other. It is still a fine balance. So like right here, now that arm looks a lot better because there's that hard shadow. But again, my favorite takeaway from today is just the way that they choose their terminating line. This color now that we've broken down how they've approached it by just literally copying what they've done, like color picking and looking at it, looks so much better. Oh, cool. Let's do her arm now. Because her arm's interesting because it looks like they even chose a little bit more of a purple, right? Her arm's so boring, though. So boring. That's okay. So let's take a base color. And let's draw her shoulder. Shoulder. And these arms are just very, like, primary shapey, right? Circle into tube. Into a break this way. Yeah. Simple. And efficient. Okay, so this will be an interesting because this one also uses the red in the elbow, so we can kind of figure out how they color pick that too. So if we're just looking at this arm, right, their general logic seems to be ever so slightly saturate or warm, saturate and darken. So now we're going to switch to the gouache brush that I've been using because I like this more, and just kind of block in real quick where the shadows kind of lie. So her arm is casting a shadow from the shirt, and this is from the behind anyway. So we got a little bit of shoulder here. The tricep cuts in, so you'd see that a little bit. And then here there's, again, her arm is a good look at like not having a whole lot going on, right? There's really not a ton going on with this arm compared to the others, you know, with all the muscle and definition. This is just pretty straightforward. So how do we block these colors in cleanly and simply? So if we already have like just like a super basic shadow, we can grab a terminator like we established, going a little brighter and a little more saturated. And then now if we just smudge this together for a sec, and then we'll look at why and how these reds play in, right? Again, not doing it to look exactly like the way they did it, just trying to grasp a flow and logic. Okay, so that arm looks fine. If anything, it's a little too heavy of shadow at the top to soften that a little bit up. So again, this is very boring. That's why I said I didn't really care to do this. It's a boring arm. And then, so here, this is, oh my gosh, iPad. Here's where it gets interesting that they take, if this is the base color, right? They say, let's go, look how red that gets. Like, that gets so almost to blue. Do we see that? it changes from a reddish orange to literally a super saturated, just slightly darker blue tint to the red, right? And they full send it. Like, they actually go pretty heavy-handed with that subsurface scattering color, right? They really just block it in there. They give a little bit, again, not exactly the way they do it, but just getting the idea with my way of doing it. And a little bit of red there in the elbow. But what's cool is it actually bleeds a little bit up, right? It doesn't just end at the elbow. It kind of pervades throughout that whole area just a little, right? That red, not drastically. That was a little too drastic, right? But just a little. And then let's take our highlights. So if this is the color, go a little lighter and a little more yellow. And just kind of throw in a little bit, just a wee bit of highlight, just to see a little something. Like I say, just a little bit so the color doesn't feel so flat. Is there anything on the elbow? Not really. I don't even really need to smudge that, but we can just a little, just to say we did. And then now how they handle, again, their lines here is interesting, because this time it almost looks like this red is more of a product of this one. Yeah. So remember when we said, when we looked at it, it looks like they took the darkest, richest color and changed it that way, right? For the outline. Normally what that meant was, like, over here, they chose the shadow by the arm here. But if we look, since this red is so dark and so prominent, they actually take this red color and then go down and created the line brush color using that one. Maybe. It seems like it. Because now when we look at the red here, see, yeah, obviously this is a little different than theirs, but this feels pretty cool, right? And it feels fitting, and it almost accentuates the red, right? So that our eye looks more towards the red of this elbow, because suddenly there's other little bits of red in the piece. And of course, when I say red, I mean like this bluish, purplyish, reddish color. So they do have this line break for the elbow, which makes sense, because an elbow isn't just like a muscle or something that's breaking the shape. The elbow is legit a bone sticking straight out, essentially. Like, if you think about your elbow, it's kind of weird, because it's like the bone is right there, just straight up. So I know today, like I said, today was going to be more instructional. I apologize that it was not quite as, like, I wasn't talking about anything else other than this, which is kind of boring, I understand. If you don't care to learn, I guess. Interesting if you are working along with me and, you know, figuring this stuff out and it makes sense. But if you're just listening, if you're just tuning in for the sweet, sultry sounds of Britton's voice, it was probably pretty boring. My bad. But again, we've talked about before, when it comes to practicing and these kind of things, this kind of stuff is understated, the importance of it, right? Because so many artists say the best way to get better is to draw. Just do more. But if you're not doing more with a reason, then why the hell are you doing it? Like, there needs to be a logic, there needs to be a flow, there needs to be a rationale behind it. So right now we're doing it with reason, right? We're not drawing this. I'm not drawing this. That doesn't look exactly like her arm, but we're drawing it with purpose and with reason. And that kind of logic is what helps us grow. So let's take a look. Let's go back to this just random ass layer that we did. And let's look at these pants, because these pants are an interesting study of drastically different colors. And I'd like to see what they choose. So if we just do a fill brush, right? So we're just going to copy this like a shape here. I'm not drawing the pant exactly, just drawing a shape. Close enough to the pant though. You know what I mean? Close enough to the idea of a pant leg going up. And I purposely not made it bigger just because I wanted it to break the orange here so it didn't look weird. And so let's see. Let's look at these colors. So now let's switch to the other color so we can see the difference, right? So if this is the base, where do they choose for their shadows? Do they do the same logic? Base, they go bluer, desaturate, and darker, right? So we've talked about that. Cooler colors, everything gets more desaturated. Warmer colors with the skin, they focus on a lot more saturation. And I think that really is what, when we're looking at their colors, why the colors pop so strongly, it's because they're going that route, right? They're desaturating their blues, whereas they're really pumping up that saturation on the reds. So again, looking at the difference, they go deeper blue, desaturate just a smidge, and then darken it up, right? Right, that's pretty much where their color is here. And then we build this logic of sculpting in shadows, right? Like we normally do. Bada bing, bada boom. And then for the highlights, they don't really have much because they're pants. And I kind of like that where it's like, you're not going to really highlight pants too much. Yeah, swapping between these colors, they don't really do anything. So let's just say they do the same logic, but lighter. So they just take it and go a little bit lighter for some of this, like that. I think I need to find a brush that has better opacity control because this gouache brush doesn't necessarily do what I want. Again, I think what I need to do is get in here and just start diving into like stuff I wanted. Like I need to tweak my brushes is what I'm getting at. Like, cause none of these are doing exactly what I want them to do, but that's okay. So here we did that little Terminator color just to give a little touch. We don't need to do too much of it on this one because the pants don't super have that. But it looks, as we've established, as we did countless of these now, it just looks better. And then now I wanted to see how they chose the colors here again, because if we look, it's two different colors for the leg. But if we go from this one, so they go hella desaturated and blue. Do we see this? they drop it so dark and go almost purple. Which looks, that looks good on pants. Like, you know what I mean? Like that actually, I can see why that works. So I think what I'd like to do with a brush like this too, thinking of my lining brush that I want to work with like this, I wonder if I add just a slight bit of variation in terms of color. So let me duplicate the brush and show you what I'm talking about. So there is a setting, color dynamics, right? Let's set it to red, okay? Then if we add a little bit of hue, it does this weird thing, but I don't like that. What is the setting? So normally you change this the lightness, but I'd rather change the saturation or the hue, I mean. But if you change the hue with this brush, for some reason it gets like kind of ugly. Do you see how that looks like a tie-dye thing? I don't want the stamp jitter to be different, but I don't want each brush stroke to be different either. I want it to like gradient between all of that then, right? I wonder if there's a way to do that. So you can do it by, okay. You can do it by pressure. So what if we just set this to like 5 degrees of difference with pressure? That's even too much. What if we do 3? Can you not do 3.5? Nope. So now with this brush, if we, this is the old one, right? Maybe 3% is not enough because you can barely see the difference. Psych, let's go to 5. Even then you still can't. Is it just because the color I picked? This is weird. Is it because of the size? Okay. So what that means is the pressure needs to change too. There we go. I like that. Can you even really see that though? What is going on with this brush? Case in point, why I need to like really get in and figure out what's going on with these things. Because some of these things have been really whack lately. Let's crank, oh, F. Let's crank a huge and see if we can tell that then. So it's literally just because it's the blue, that's all. The color that we've chosen. So I wonder if we do 4% hue and 4% saturation. You won't see it much in the blues. But they do, there is a slight variation then. Okay. That's fine. We change, what if we change then each time I do make the stroke, it's just like 2%. So it's like you won't even really notice it, but it'll feel slightly more natural maybe. Let's try with a more noticeable color, reds. Just because I hate when I'm drawing and everything feels the exact, like it feels so digital, right? We've gotten into a point where like everything we do is digital, right? But then it feels so digital when it's the same damn color. So giving some sort of brush that gives at least like, even if it's like ever so slightly, some sort of discrepancy of color. I want it, you know? Yeah, after stream, I think what I'm gonna do later is I'm gonna sit in here and I'm gonna play with my brushes. So now that I've learned how I like these, like I like this method, right? But the brushes I'm using aren't doing what I want them to. So if they're not doing what you want, you can either try and find something that does, but it's usually a lot easier if you know what you want to just figure out how to make it yourself. So I think that's what I'm gonna go do later. I want something with like a harder edge to come in here and clean up. Like, do you see how like at this point I'm like, yeah, I want a cleaner line up in here, but I don't want it to be this heavy. And I think that's one of multiple things I want to address. So again, I liked when they took, so where's the darkest shadow we have? Probably like that. Let's make it a smidge darker just because there probably was a darker one. We just couldn't catch it with the color pick. And using that, remember, as like an inner line that then can transfer into the other line like this, right? I really, 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 really like that. So it's half what they do and half not, but that's okay because that's the whole point is seeing stuff that they do and studying and then folding it in. And now I'm like, okay, let's make it my way of doing it now. I think that looks good. I do declare. All right, all right, all right. I promise Thursday will be more entertaining. I know today's been so boring. I know I keep saying that. I'm sorry. But I really did want to showcase breaking down colors because I don't think that's something I've ever done. And I want to showcase like how we can break down other people's use of colors. So again, not sexy, but sometimes we just need to be efficient. So let's take a look at Mai then, because we established her colors are pretty extreme, right? Let's take a look at Mai and her skin color now. So let's draw her leg. So let's bring up a new layer real quick. We're going to grab our fill brush. It's going to slap on. So about here is her normal color, right? So she's got, oop, that is the wrong brush. Nope, it's the right brush, just wrong opacity. So we've got a leg, you know, good old leg with a big butt, you know, that's my for you, big butt. Whoopsies, that butt got real weird looking. Again, just getting the shape enough. I'm not trying to redraw her whole leg entirely the way it's drawn. Getting a block in so we can kind of start coloring. So there's a leg. Put that calf in. Actually, it looks a little too short of a thigh. Leg. Cool. Actually, rotate. Fill it. Done. Okay. So again, let's go by their logic. Thank you. It is boring though. It's okay. Especially if you're not watching it. If you're only tuning in and listening like some people do, I know it's probably hella boring because there's long moments of silence and I'm just talking about colors that people cannot see if you're just tuning in audibly. Either way, we're already almost at the end of stream anyway, so if it was boring too damn bad, it'll be less boring next time. But so what's interesting with her leg is her leg obviously doesn't have like drastic highlights and shadows based on the way it's being positioned, right? It's kind of like evenly lit, but it still has color variation. So obviously the leg's receding down a little bit, so there's shadow towards the knee and downward, but it's not like so shadowed. And same with the butt. The butt actually has more of the, like we talked about, the subsurface scattering. So we see more of the blood cells and different red in the cheeks and on the upper part of the thigh. So I think that's something to note too, is like it doesn't always have to be super drastic, but having nice color variation still is good. So let's do, again, small smidge. And not go as dark then. And let's just kind of go to our gouache and just so what's interesting though is this doesn't look nearly as red. So what they did is they've definitely saturated her colors a bit more and leaned a little more heavily into the red somehow, right? So what are they doing for color? How do they do this? So that's theirs, and this is my base color. What did they change? Again, it's me. They're working in centimeters, man, and I'm working in inches. So you see how small of a change that is that they did? That's it. That little bit, little saturation, little darker, little warmer. And that looks so much better than the color I was picking. Again, need to hammer that home, that work in centimeters. Because when you're working with color, if you're doing these two overarching changes, it's gonna keep looking weird, which is the problem I've been having for a long time. just kind of a little bit of color blocked in around the thigh, inner thigh here. And now I'm just going to kind of purposely just smudge the hell out of that, just so it has like color variation, but nothing crazy. So let's see if we can do this now, this time at least. Saturate and pull it up for this Terminator color, right? Which is pretty prominent near the butt here. Like quite prominent. The Terminator color I feel like is really more drastic and pronounced. And then now let's just kind of smudge that Terminator in with everything else. So again, we'll definitely need to look at the color thing again with the red, because this one is a very strong overlap, and we're not able to illustrate that with just the shadows as much. That definitely needs a hard edge like that. So while we're here, let's look at that. So they take the red, and they go, like we said last time, they went hell. Let's do it like extreme, like super saturate it and darken it, right? And let's see how that looks, because that's what they did with the last one, and it looked really good. I thought that looked great. So this came out a lot more brown than I would have liked. How did they get to their color? Let's work backwards again. So let's zoom in. Let's get this color that they got. How is it different? So their color. Now this is where it's hard for me, because they worked in an inch. I've been saying work in centimeters. I think I need to learn that, like, it's like 80% centimeters, 20% inches maybe, right? And I think that's kind of like, I keep trying to figure out like the secret sauce, right? And there is no right answer, for the record. That's the whole point. And I think that's the thing, is I keep trying to be like, I like to put numbers and values and understand things, but like that's not what art is, right? It's variable. It changes. It's always different. And so I think understanding that, and in my brain being like at least like 80-20, like, okay, well, you should be moving small amounts most of the time, but you need to find that moment where it's worth it, right? Like we're changing it by a 20% versus or like, you know, going an inch, going a centimeter, is worth it. So like you work in centimeters 80% of the time, but you find that moment, right? You find your opening, you find that time where like, okay, now we push it. Because technically that harkens back to what I've been saying, right? If everything is big, nothing is big, right? Or whatever my logic is always. Same idea then, right? If everything is working in centimeters, nothing is inches. So I guess I need to like abide by my own rules and adapt them to this too, where if everything is in centimeters, nothing's in inches. So I need to make sure there's a variation still among that. One thing too, this brush has no streamline to it. So like if you notice, it is like hella etchy looking. That's another thing I'm going to need to adjust, and I will fix when I redo all of these brushes. But so there's like a good amount of color, and now if we just, so I guess the whole thing was I was talking about was like, how do I simplify things and how do I make my process a little smoother? I think this still overall is smoother because I'm making quicker decisions then, right? And you're not getting hung up on details. So I think there's like a merit to everything. And now here, I feel like is where like the final touches really pop of like, okay, but now I need to add some sort of highlight to it because the skin has yellows, it has reds, it has oranges. And if you just have the reds, then it feels very flat. But now I like this now then. So I like their way of adding it to be a little yellower. I think that color decision works well. And so we can make it feel a wee bit more alive. So I haven't played Rivals in a day or two. Well, I mean, I played yesterday with my friends, but I mean, like, I haven't played like legit my own way. And I'm nervous. I was telling my girlfriend that I've been getting too annoyed with it. And it's like not been as fun as I want it to be. Like, I have fun playing it, but why do people have to be jerks? Like, I know that sounds so silly, but like, everyone always ends up being so angry. Why is the world so angry? Right? Something's to be said about how angry people are now. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I want to go. I'm playing a game where I'm a effing comic book character. Like, I don't want to be overly angry about things. I should be taking it serious if I'm playing ranked, but I shouldn't be getting so mad that I'm being rude to other human beings. Like, I just don't get that. When they like yell at you and like I had one guy who legitimately like banged on chest, screamed energy, right? Like hurt my ear. If you ever were to have screamed at me like that in person, that would have been one of the most tempting moments in my life to punch you in the face kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I'm ever really tempted to resort to violence quite ever. But like the other day I was playing and someone screamed at my face in my ear. Didn't talk the whole time and were dicks the whole time, basically, like the way that they acted and the way they were text chatting. And then pulled that, like genuinely screamed at me about something that was their fault for the record. And I was like, so help me, you would never, ever, ever do that in real life to another human being. I can guarantee that. And if you would, that's a whole other problem that I'm concerned for you then. Like, but yeah, it's very frustrating when it's something I genuinely enjoy, but people ruin it. And I know that is unfortunately the world that we live in. There's a lot of those things that we can say. But it just sucks. It just sucks when people suck. So it looks kind of tight here. So I wanted to play with that idea, like we said, of me using a little more of like a second. I don't know why this keeps looking brown as F. Is it the brush? Is it because I made this weird brush? It totally effing is. Oh my god, I hate this. That's deleting this brush. Delete it. Gone. Yep. F you. I need to go back and remake these brushes. I was like, why is this? No matter what I'm doing, the color pick is not being accurate. Ugh. Talk about being angry at things. Sorry, my bad. That was a weird transition to then yell. Frustrating. But yeah, people are poo poo. Pee pee poo poo. What's not poo poo though is I've started going to a new gym. It's a Planet Fitness. And I've always had this weird, Planet Fitness has had a stigma, and it largely founded one in their core ideology of how they do the lunk alarm stuff, as I've talked about. But also, it's a really nice gym. Like, it's one of the most cleanest gyms, like overly, like, everybody's clean. They've got people actually cleaning because you don't have as many, like, squat racks. There are no squat racks. There's no squat racks. There's no benches. There's nothing, which is weird, right? There's Smiths everywhere. And the weights don't go past 100, which would have impacted me when I was younger. But I'm an old, broken man now, right? I'm okay. I'm not lifting that much. I don't need to deal with it. So, like, there's no reason it's bad. Like, yes, it's weird, the lunk alarm logic and how they do that, but it's not like it's an enforced thing. It's not like, yes, that's something I need to get over in my head because that was a marketing ploy that they did simply. That's fine. But it's a pretty good gym. I've been going now for quite a bit, and I think I'm ready to cancel out. So I was keeping the old one just in case, my old membership. But I think it's worth it just to get rid of it now. Like, it's not, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I think I've come to, like, okay, I've committed. This is a pretty good gym. I like this. I don't need to, keep a backup, if you will. So if we're talking about at least some positive, I went negative real quick. So I was like, no, let's talk about positive things for a moment. Which the gym is good. One other positive thing is I get my last piece of chocolate. I talked about the weather. The weather is so weird. I am so unbelievably stuffy right now. Like, my nose. It's the temperature and my allergies are going to be running amok. Like, it's going to be bad. I'm not looking forward to that part. But with anything, there's always a give and a take, right? I want better weather. I don't want the allergies that come with it, but I'm not going to be picky at this point. Just give it to me. So, looking at things, trying to think of, I addressed a lot of the body, like the muscle, the lines of that, where the reds will go, how we're going to pick colors and stuff like that, right? Touched a little on the clothes. Haven't really looked at hair. So I guess we've got like 15-ish minutes left before I want to sign off and go eat for real. Let's take a quick look at how they handle hair. So if we're looking at Terry here, not much, right? They are simplifying this hair. And this is something I've always tried to do myself that I always struggle with as well. But I definitely, I know I overdo muscles a lot, but I definitely do try and simplify the hair. And so if we look at how they did this hair here, don't mind me, I'm just like reclined like a weirdo right now with my legs actually up. You can't see, but my feet are up because, I'm feeling like that. But so if we see the hair, right, if we're, what layer are we on? So the hair, he's blonde, right? Good old blonde Terry. He's supposed to be like the American. In like the fighting games, like in King of Fighters, he always has like the blue-eyed, blonde-haired kind of energy, right? And it's funny because in my mind, when I was younger, he has a move called Burn Knuckle, right? But playing King of Fighters, he's like the white guy, right? He's the white guy, and he's wearing all red. He's got his trucker hat. I totally pictured him as like stupid American energy compared to all the other Japanese vibed characters, right? Though it is a Japanese game. So the voice actors are, you guessed it, Japanese. The thing with that, though, is my brain Never heard burn knuckle. Keep in mind, he lunges forward with like fiery fists. Oh, wait, no, it's burn knuckle the punch. Fiery hands, right? Burn knuckle. And I always thought he said barn. Barn knuckle. I thought it was barn, like, because he's like a white, like a stereotypical white American thing. So I thought it was like barn knuckle, like it was like a farming thing. And I felt so dumb when I was older and realized it was burn knuckle, not barn. But in my head, it's still barn. It still is. I don't care. You can't tell me otherwise. So I'm just quickly trying to see what they do with the hair in their coloring. So again, they just kind of go little darker, a little saturated, a little more red, because again, we talked about they saturate or they warm the warmer colors, I feel like, more often. So that is kind of what they do. So everything's blocked in. So they do really drastic shapes. So like they cut in these pieces for highlights. And then everything else behind it is shadow. Like there's not as much like painting to do with their hair, I feel like, the way that they handle this. And they don't even have much of that like transition that we've talked about, right? Like the terminating line for color, which is strange. Barn knuckle. Then they kind of do the thing where they kind of... So this is where I need a better brush, because it looks like they just straight up take this at half opacity. But that's not what my brush does based on these settings. But that's the energy that they kind of do. Which is why I need to fix my brushes. Because then, see how this is like a slightly different blonde color now? Like a little different gold. Let's just paint the ear in, just for shits and giggles. So I'm just quickly blocking in these colors for the ear, just to have like this little terminating line in this. Just, I know we're doing hair, but I figured it's got the ear here. Might as well kind of play with this a little. Nothing crazy, just so that it looks like there's an ear there though. And then do the same thing. We'll grab this dark color. Saturate the heck out of it. And then draw a little bit of an outline. And then take the dark color without any changes and do a line, right? I really like that. Taking the darkest color and using that for inner line work. That really just, it helps because it doesn't feel as harsh as when I used to do it with my hard lines, right? So again, let's take the logic They go dark. Do they do the same thing? Since this is a warm color, do they go warm and then warmer? I'm guessing they do. Yep, just darker, warmer, and slightly more saturated. And here, they don't do, so they do an outline for some of the hair, right? But they don't outline all of it when it comes to the face, because the face then is more important, right? The hair is cool until you get to the face, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah. You're not the star of the show anymore. It's the face. So that makes sense too. Because like right here, if you notice, it looks like there's outline here going back for this bang, right? But then as it approaches this next spot, it's gone. Because it's the face now, right? And the face has more importance. Let's do a slight terminating line just to see how that looks before we blend it all. Super slight, right? And then now I don't want to overly blend it because they keep their shapes pretty hard for the hair. But that definitely helps soften it up. And we'll do the same thing then with this color. We'll grab it as a liner. If we do that, I kind of like that, like using the same logic, but in reverse then. So taking the lightest color and using it as like a liner going the other way as like a little highlight, right? Kind of looks good. So hair does have highlights. So I want to see if I can just do a tiny little bit. I don't know how much would really be worth it, but I feel like it needs some color variety, like in some of these spots. It's too heavy. Again, this is exactly where I wish I could make a better brush with stronger opacity settings. So I could actually just kind of lightly touch up this space rather than having to like fully commit to a color, you know? Yeah, that works for, again, just a quick study of how the hair would look. Nothing too intense as usual. All right. Well, I think that's as good a place as any to stop the study today. It was a weird day, I know. Honestly, I was kind of thrown off just by the whole stuff with my mom's flight. Mentally, I was kind of in a weird spot, to be honest. Like I said, especially because I had like weird negative thoughts about it last night, and then this morning it was weird. Weird headspace, that's for sure. But that said, I think we still got some good studying in, right? I think we were able to learn a lot. I hope, somebody learned something with this. If nobody else did, at least I did, right? And that's kind of what matters right now. So yeah, maybe not the most thrilling, but I think it was pretty efficient in terms of practice. Because, like we say, if you are gonna practice something you need to practice. And coloring, as we've seen, is definitely something I need to practice. So I learned something. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully this makes my, coloring and painting more efficient as time goes on now. I can fold these methods, this thought process, this color theory into my own. And hopefully I can make things look better in the future. More what my brain wants them to look like, right? We've talked about that like a lot of times you can draw stuff and it can still look good, but it's not what you wanted. So hopefully this will help me get to more where I want, but only time will tell, right? Either way, it's Tuesday. I will be back Thursday with more fun, I promise. I'll tell stories, I'll make stupid puns and jokes. We'll maybe look at a few more fun things rather than just straight up art. Either way, something more entertaining for sure will be on the docket for Thursday. Thank you guys for whoever did tune in and got a little bit of watching in. And hopefully, like I said, learn something. Either way, I am going to go eat. And until Thursday, be kind and kick butt.